which there is some data for that. If you look at like when Title 42, which was basically an asylum ban during COVID, didn't actually reduce the number of crossings that much. What it did was simply reduce the people who encountered border control, and it massively increased the number of known gotaways. Basically, our border security used to be worse like in the 2000s. Like, we didn't used to have cameras in every part of the border, so it used to be the case that a higher percentage of immigrants who crossed the border wouldn't be counted in known gotaways and wouldn't be counted in an encounter because they never had an encounter. But if you take an estimate of the total unlawful entries, it's not actually, it's basically the same as it was in the early 2000s.
And even claims of asylum, this is not a right. This is clearly not a right. Now, UN, of course, would disagree with me on that, but this is not a right in our Constitution.
It's not in our Constitution, but right here, 8 U.S. Code 1158 asylum. Oh my god, dude. Let's just, send it, dude. Let's just, like, send in the military to deport 13 million people. That would be hugely expensive and also inflationary. We did a lot of research in immigration a few days ago. So, even though I definitely don't consider myself a libertarian, I'll probably end up aligning pretty closely with the libertarians on the border issue. It'll be really interesting to see if these people actually know how the law works. The Cato Institute, which is a libertarian think tank, I read a lot of stuff from there about immigration, and they do a good job going over the specifics of the immigration law. So the big issue is the 1967 UN Convention on the Rights of Refugees, or whatever, which the US has signed and ratified. It means you have to grant asylum to refugees, regardless of whether they come from a port of entry, regardless of whether they come in legally, regardless of all these things, right? So building a wall won't do anything, because the issue is that, and also secondly, our own domestic law requires the same thing. So even if that treaty doesn't exist, our own domestic law requires that asylum be granted. Yeah, this law, the asylum law. That's why building a wall doesn't do shit. It literally does nothing, because the big issue is people can just come to the wall and claim asylum, and they have to be put through our immigration court system. The immigration court system doesn't have the resources to process everybody.
All right. Well, we're going to start with some broad opening statements. Ryan, why don't you present our esteemed panelists here with the question?
All right, Robbie, we can start with you. We can work our way down there. Immigration, good or bad?
In the United States.
Yes, I think immigration is good. So I would never describe myself as anti-border or open borders. I think nations do have the right to assert borders. But the fundamental question is, ought we to make it easier to come to the country legally and participate in the economic development of the country, have immigrants who work here and contribute to our civic and cultural life and help us make this country better? We're all, obviously, most of us, descended from people who immigrated to America at some point. It's kind of a cliche that this is a nation of immigrants, but it's true. And the reality is we have a lot of immigrants here. We have illegal immigrants. And then the question becomes, how should we deal with that? I think everyone is watching, this is called the Southern Border Debate.
I think the libertarians are usually like anti-prohibition, whether it be drugs or illegal immigration, because they'll say, oh, well, it doesn't really stop anybody from doing drugs or coming over the border. It just increases the negative side effects of it. Which there is some data for that. If you look at like when Title 42, which was basically an asylum ban during COVID, didn't actually reduce the number of crossings that much. What it did was simply reduce the people who encountered border control, and it massively increased the number of known gotaways. That's people who totally evaded border patrol when they crossed the border, which means that 1, they don't get an asylum court date, and 2, they don't get screened for a criminal background.
People are watching the chaos at the southern border, people streaming over.
Oh, and they never get work authorization.
In unsafe conditions for them, contributing to chaos and disorder for some people in border towns. I absolutely agree that is far from ideal, and that is a strain. It's a burden for a lot of people. The way to fix that, because we can't have like magic empower the government solutions that never actually work. The way to fix that would be make a system that is easier for people to come here, to be vetted, so we keep out criminals, terrorists, etc., then have them legally work here, pay taxes here, and then you wouldn't have so many people resorting to desperate, unsafe measures entering the country the way they are. So I say yes to immigration, yes to legal immigration, more legal immigration, shift people from the illegal category into the legal category by making the laws safer and deregulated.
Let's go to Ryan for immigration, good or bad?
Thank you for having me. I believe that the state we're in right now in our country, there are more immigrants than we've ever had before, both percentage-wise and by number. It's over 50 million. It's increased.
It's about the same percentage-wise as it was, I think, like in 1800s. And also, if you make sure to include the estimated, basically our border security used to be worse like in the 2000s. Like we didn't used to have cameras on every part of the border, so it used to be the case that a higher percentage of immigrants who crossed the border wouldn't be counted in known gotaways and wouldn't be counted in an encounter because they never had an encounter. But if you take an estimate of the total unlawful entries, including the estimated number of known gotaways that we couldn't count back then because we didn't have as advanced border security, it's basically the same as it was in the early 2000s. Yeah. And this is percentage of the population. Legal southward border crossings percentage of U.S. population. You can see it's basically, it's really not that high or anything.
By 6 million since Joe Biden, in the last few years since Joe Biden took office. Stopping mass immigration is the most important issue in our country because immigration affects every other issue. How long does it take to get a hospital bed? How many seats are in a classroom?
Illegal immigration is a crime. What? You're telling me? I could not infer that from the word illegal.
Cost of the welfare state. What is it? How many people will be imprisoned? And most importantly, who will vote in our country, in the future of our country? Immigrants vote overwhelmingly for Democrats. They
Dude, this is such a funny. I don't want people to come here because they'll vote for the party that I don't like.
believe overwhelmingly in progressive ideas. They don't share the ideas of our constitutional republic. They can get there over many generations, but when you have immigration at our current rate, what you're doing is you're voting to end yourself as you once were. It will still be America. It will just be a much, much different version of America. In the 2016 election, because this is the only election they had exit polls for, people born outside the country voted 3-1 for Hillary Clinton, while
it really doesn't like, sorry, Localist Party. For whatever reason, Twitch doesn't really like that. All illegal immigrants are criminals. True. Debunk Palestinian laws. We're on the border right now. We'll react to Palestine stuff later.
She only won the popular vote and almost became president simply because we decided to import so many people who believe in the idea of big government and will continue to believe in the idea of big government. My position is, a lot of people would sit there and say it's fringe that there and we want to support lower levels of legal immigration. But even the Cato study from 2021 sat there and found that 44% of Americans want to reduce legal immigration by at least 90%. 61% want to cut.
Yeah, because they're idiots because they don't understand economics.
By at least 50%. And that was before Biden took office and blew the gates open at the border. This is the popular opinion.
Okay. It's just a dumb thing people do. Like when people say like immigrants tend to commit less crime than the native population, it'll say all illegal immigrants are criminals. They all committed at least one crime. When like it's obvious. Other than the crime that they had to commit, they commit less crime than the native population. And importantly, illegal immigration is a crime that doesn't hurt anybody in and of itself.
This is the opinion that people want of their representative. And if it wasn't for Democrats vying for votes and Republicans vying for donations from the Chamber of Commerce, then we would probably get what we want. And I'll close by saying this. I think immigration, to paraphrase Hillary Clinton, should be safe, legal, and rare. And hopefully one day it will be.
And Bruce, immigration, good, bad?
Well, I am somebody who supports immigration. I support the economic activity that immigration creates, the fact that immigrants have started tons of businesses in this country, the children start lots of businesses in this country. And I'm a free marketer, and I believe that labor is capital. I believe you should be able to come to this country and, exercise your full economic potential, which many people can't in their nation of origin. We have so many people who have started Fortune 500 companies as immigrants or the children of immigrants. We have millions of small businesses in this country that are created by immigrants. In fact, immigrants create small businesses at a greater rate than their current, than their statistics of the population. They create 17% of small businesses. They're 14% of the people here. And so, for me, I see immigration as a pro-economic argument. That yes, I understand that we live in a welfare state, but the truth is, if you look at the numbers in a state like Texas, in 2018. $428 million is actually the amount of money that was drawn into the system in excess, not taken away by immigrants. So immigrants actually create economic growth. They invest in their communities, and they pay taxes, by the way. They pay sales taxes, they pay excise taxes, they pay property taxes as property owners and renters. And I would like more people to be able to come here, work under a legal framework, because that's where the real crisis is. The crisis is not that we have immigration in this country. The crisis is that we have a government that does a terrible job processing people to come here and work. And working here does not mean instant citizenship, but that process is also time-consuming and costly and far too long for some.
Another big thing, which I'm sure they'll mention, if it was just simply easier for people to move here and work here, there would probably be a lot of immigrants who work here for some amount of time and then eventually just move back to Mexico when they retire or something. Because a lot of people moving here, they'll call them economic migrants, right? Just want to work here and send remittances back to their family. They don't actually necessarily want citizenship or anything. Like they just want to work here. They want to make money, send it back to their family. If we just simply made it easier to work here, there'd be plenty of people who move to the U.S. for a short period of time, or not necessarily a short period of time, but for not their entire life, and don't don't ever receive citizenship because they just work here and then eventually move back.
I'm going to become a citizen. But I know immigrants. I meet them all day, every day. And let me tell you, there are people who...
Why does immigration necessarily hurt the country and its native population?
No more people who are more patriotic than people who come here from somewhere else and can make something of themselves here in the United States. And, I hear your argument about they vote for Democrats. That's a marketing problem from Republicans, not a problem amongst immigrants, because immigrants come here.
True. Well, these are the libertarians, and the other people are just two weird right-winger people.
Usually escaping big government totalitarianism from somewhere else. They're more likely to be Christian and want to participate in a two-parent household, have strong family connections. And so there are a lot of areas where immigrants should actually be the natural people that Republicans are able to market to. I can't help it that Republicans are bad at doing that. But what I do know is that immigrants who want to come here, want to make something of themselves, contribute to...
Also, Latino vote doesn't go overwhelmingly to Democrats anymore. Like, Trump kind of changed that. Like, Trump received a lot of support from Latinos.
And I want to see more of them come here in a way that's orderly, in a way that allows us to check who's coming in here, make sure they're not dangerous. But for the most part, that needs to be the one barrier. If you're dangerous, you shouldn't be coming to this country. If you want to come here to work, come here to work. Create economic output.
So we're going to have a lot to break down. Before we do, Jack, give us your immigration good or bad take.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of a gotcha question to begin with. We all can see the benefit of having
there's a right answer.
Of saying yes, no, because I'm obviously side more with Ryan that the current level of immigration is bad. Could there be a level of immigration that is good? I'm open to discussion, but the current level of mass immigration and mass importation of foreigners is bad. But I'd rather actually cede my own time and take
military
age
men,
if we could. For
oh my God, I watched this. I watched the opening statement and then I watched a few clips on Twitter. I can't, dude. This is probably the worst fucking way to virtue signal about this. This is so cringe. I visibly cringe when he says this.
Cede my own time and take a moment of silence, if we could, for Jocelyn Nungary, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, and Kate Steinle, who are the victims of the open border.
It's so awkward. Oh my God. It's just like, you can talk about crime or whatever, but oh my God, like this weird virtue signal moment of silence in your opening statement. Oh my God, that's just so fucking weird, dude.
So Jack.
Oh, oh my God. It's so, yeah. Oh my God.
You're seating entirely now.
Thank you.
Okay. Noted. So a lot of overlap, but then also some big points of tension in everything that's been outlined so far. Let's start with this question of danger, because off the point that Jack just made, there have been some high-profile issues. There have been some high-profile crimes committed by people who were here illegally, whether they were abusing the asylum system, whether they had overstayed visas, a lot of different results there, or maybe they crossed the border illegally in the first place. According to ICE, last year, 73,822 non-citizens with a criminal history were arrested. Those were just numbers of people who were arrested. So my question to both of you, and you can jump in if you want to answer it first, but we'll go in whatever order you two choose, is it possible right now, with the levels of immigration that we've seen, according to the Washington Post, that's at least 2 million people a year under Joe Biden, to screen for people whether they're dangerous? This is something that you said, Chase. If people are dangerous, that should be the one barrier. Is it possible in this current
Please mention the asylum law. Please mention the actual issue.
Immigration system, or what more, if anything, needs to be done to vet people when you have 2 million at least coming?
Mass illegal immigration has macroeconomic effects on the labor market, which hurt the American worker benefits. Hurt the American workers and benefits American business owners / the immigrants themselves. People aren't also interchangeable. Since American politics is centralized, immigrant representation duties, Native American representation, etc. True. Most of the data shows that immigrants only really hurt the wages of high school dropouts and non-college graduates, low skill people. And even by then, it's only by 1 to 2%. Two, you even mentioned it benefits American business owners. There are going to be, to some extent, winners and losers in immigration, but the trade-off seems to be overwhelmingly worth it. You're telling me, would I accept a 2% decrease in the wages of high school dropouts for an increase in tax revenue and GDP? That trade-off might be worth it. Yeah, I would be willing to accept that. It helps American business owners. What you're really saying is There's like inequality stuff that you can bring up, which might have some valid points, but like, I would accept like if it's a 3% increase in GDP or 5% increase in tax revenue versus a 2% decrease in wages for high school dropouts. Yeah, that's a trade-off I'm willing to make, dude.
In a year, whether that's through asylum or illegal crossings or overstaying visas, whatever it is.
I would say it's difficult. It's extremely difficult to vet them under the current system of them flooding across the southern border and claiming asylum. My goal would be to reduce the number of people who are coming by that means, and then we could have stronger border protection for the people who are still resorting, who I think are more likely to be.
Well, yeah, we really need a good legal means that prevents people from coming into the asylum system. George in Mexico takes your job. He probably deserved it more than you.
Criminal or
do you even care about demographic change as replacement? Not really. No, I'm not a great replacement guy.
For some reason, they wouldn't want to submit themselves to government questioning when they're trying to come in. If we made the process for everyone else easier, we would have less people coming in ways that we can't monitor, abusing the asylum system, which we probably all agree is not a good system for figuring these things out. We have people come in, claim asylum, even though it's meant for political fugitives, which applies to some of these people. I think that it's been stretched by all definition for the vast majority of people claiming it.
Right.
And then they're here until a court date some years in the future that can't be monitored. Whether they can work in that period is very ambiguous. It's just, no one should support them.
Okay. Are we really doing the great replacement stuff right now? What's funny is that like I'm a strong like liberal. So something I do care about is the values that society has, and there are cases where immigration may change the values that society has. So the big thing here are, I think a lot of right-wing people fearmonger way too much about this one, but Muslim immigrants. The analogy I would use if America imported 50 million communist immigrants, right, who are all communist, well, then maybe there'd be some communist reform that I wouldn't agree with, and the values of American society would change. And that's kind of bad because they're changing in an illiberal way. And the analogous thing there is Muslim immigration, and they might the problem is I think right-wingers fearmonger way too much about this, but the argument is they'll implement Sharia law, but there may be some reforms that are illiberal that change the values that America has. I mean, people fearmonger more about Muslim immigration from Europe, but like my understanding is that most of the data suggests that even Muslims assimilate pretty well to a country's values. But that's the steel man of the Great Replacement. Well, it's not. That's a different thing than a great replacement, really. That's the steel man of anti-immigration stuff.
It makes no sense. The violent crimes that have been committed by illegal immigrants are unconscionable. They are awful. Those people should be brought to justice to the full extent of the law. But we will probably all agree they should be, if they were legal immigrants, if they were native-born citizens, whoever does these violent crimes should be responsible. So then you have to get into, well, are the illegal immigrants responsible for a larger share of the crime than other categories? And statistics over and over again find that no. I mean, we've just had a massive murder spike in the city we're in, Washington, D.C. last year. You can look at those statistics. It's awful. It needs to be dealt with. It's not illegal immigrants doing it. It's the native-born population. It's poor African-American people in the poorer parts of the city who have been here for generations. So it's a problem that's got to be dealt with, and it should be talked about. But the illegal immigrants being like responsible for the crime we're seeing in our cities, it's responsible for some of them, certain, and we got to keep those people out. But it doesn't make any statistical rationale. And the same.
That doesn't matter to you. Native populations being replaced with foreign ones. It's just so fucking
some
dumb.
Liberals will say that, like, look, assault weapons. Look, this was used in another violent shooting. But then people who understand guns better know that the vast majority of people are using these weapons responsibly, and they're actually in a small minority of gun cases. So we would not, I don't want them all banned for that reason because I'm a libertarian. It's a similar argument.
And so, Chase, my definition actually of closing the borders is tightening our asylum laws, making them more just and more fair, so that people who desperately need asylum actually can get asylum. What do you make of that question? To Robbie's point, we probably all agree that our asylum system is a mess. Is that closing the border if we tighten asylum loopholes?
No. But if you do that in conjunction with actually easing the restrictions on people who want to come here peacefully and just work, which is most people, I would proverbially 99.9% of libertarian or of immigrants want to come in here, just come across the border, get a job, work, provide for their family. And if we allowed a system that made it,
I don't know if it's 99.9%,
easy for those people to come through. Just come right through, submit yourself to a background check in a 21st century Ellis Island model, and then come right in and get to work. Well, that eases the strain on law enforcement to actually take care of those who are human trafficking across the border. They're not going to come through a port of entry if you're human trafficking. You're not going to come through a port of entry if you're carrying tons of fentanyl that's been pressed to look like Xanax pills. It's going to cause the next OD in our communities. Those are the people that we need to be having law enforcement stopping, right? But
most drugs do come through legal ports of entry.
Yeah, and that is ultimately that has to do with the fact that we have a huge appetite for drugs and the war on drugs and the crime that it creates.
Yeah, I was going to say the libertarian argument is always just going to be anti-prohibition for all of these things, so.
By the way, much of the immigrant crime that we see in this country is a direct result of drug crime that comes from cartels. If we ended the war on drugs, we would remove the profit motive for much of that violence that we see in our neighborhoods. And if we had more open immigration, if we didn't have immigrants who are fearing.
Yeah, he's just gonna say, well, if we didn't prohibit drugs, the cartel wouldn't exist, right? Which is true to some extent, yeah. I mean, I'm in favor of a lot of I don't know. I don't know where exactly I fall on the decriminalization legalization spectrum, but libertarian argument's true. But I think weed should definitely be legal, and I think simple possession should probably be decriminalized for most shit. Although I saw Oregon had some problems with that. I don't know exactly. Maybe we'll do a drug research arc at some point, but.
The police, fearing that they might have to see their papers and get deported. Well, in these immigrant communities, you have more people more likely to go to the police when something happens because they don't fear themselves being deported. And so we had a more open immigration system for people who want to come here peacefully. It would make all of our communities safer because we would be able to actually have immigrants participating in the process as opposed to living in the shadows, which creates black markets, which creates crime.
Oh, no, I'm aware of your position, Lucas Party. Trust me.
Creates violence in our neighborhoods. And I don't want that. I don't think anybody here wants that. But I think the solution in terms of immigration is to ease the process for those who want to come here peacefully. And yes, if you are seeking political, asylum from political persecution, there should be a process for that. And, I would wager that somebody who...
Yeah, wait. Also, if the federal government doesn't make it illegal, that means the federal government doesn't make it... Anything that's not illegal is legal.
who get stopped at the border and they say, hey, you're wanted for a crime. And they say, that's a politically motivated crime. I'm claiming asylum. Well, then you go...
Dang it, well, weed is like federally, I think it's a Schedule 3 drug now, thanks to my man Joe Biden, who rescheduled it. Let's go. Or it may still be undergoing a process of rescheduling. But the states do have some control over it because of some weird shit, but it's still federally illegal.
Through that process. Right now, the asylum process is totally broken.
So, Jack, what's wrong with that argument?
Everything.
Okay.
Completely everything. So, for example, with what Robbie was saying about how, yes, U.S. citizens do commit crimes, and you're right that it is predominantly, when you're talking about homicide, violent crime, there's an African-American rate that is clearly higher. That's a separate category of this. What's different is that non-citizen crime, specifically when it's by illegals, can actually be reduced to zero, because none of these people should be here to begin with. So, if they're not here, they will not be able to commit the crime.
I think it's still undergoing some of the processes, but hopefully it'll be Schedule 3 drug soon. I don't think it's Schedule 3 yet, but it will be.
It's quite simple.
If you take everybody's guns, then they won't be able to shoot anybody, right?
You have to be able to stab people, you're able to beat up people, you can kill a person a lot of ways, Ryan. You can kill a person a lot of ways.
But is this prohibition for people, as Chase was just saying?
Of course. It's prohibition for foreign people.
Then is there downstream effects similar to, as we saw, is the metaphor that a lot of libertarians will
makes an
make?
interesting point. I mean, the left says, look at all this gun violence perpetrated by these people with these assault weapons.
We have a right to the Second Amendment in this country. We have many rights in this country, which by the way, these immigrants vote for parties that completely deride like the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. By the way, these are what the immigrants vote against.
Yeah, we decided we had that right.
When we decide we have these rights, no foreign citizen has a right to become a citizen. No foreigner has a right to cross the border and walk into our country. And even claims of asylum. This is not a right. This is clearly not a right. Now, UN, of course, would disagree with me on that. But this
it's the right under the 1967 UN Convention on the Rights of Refugees or whatever the fuck. I don't think that's the exact name, but it's 1967 UN Convention something refugees and U.S. own domestic law.
It's not a right in our Constitution.
It's not in our Constitution, but right here, 8 U.S. Code 1158 asylum. This is a 1980 something law, whatever.
Whatsoever. In fact, the Constitution gives the government broad latitude to govern this and administer it as they see fit. And so any government, the next one, Chase wants to try to be the next president over here, that you would actually have the ability through a lot of controls and working with Congress or others to be able to set that, because these are not constitutional rights. Again, no person has a right. I can't walk over to China and say I have a right to be a citizen. I lived in China for a couple of years. I don't have a right to citizenship. Doesn't matter how much I learn Mandarin.
Oh, that's wild. You know why? Because China doesn't have an asylum law like we do.
Or assimilate to the culture. I have no right whatsoever to those things. The Second Amendment, of course, is a right, and it is the right of self-defense, which is the expressive right to the right to life.
We're getting lost in the point here. The Second Amendment was a right because, as Americans, when we created the country, we decided that it was going to be a right. We could just as equally decide that we want it to be a right that people can come here, as we did throughout the entire 19th century.
Dude, hold on. I don't want to talk too much about Israel Palestine right now because I want to upload the VOD of this, right? And I don't want to just be talking to the chat the whole time. But I think I might start farming TikTok debates because there's a lot of really super uneducated Palestinians on TikToks doing debates that I see on my TikTok live, and there's a lot of Zionists who are more educated, but even still I have disagreements with them. I talked to one of them about. We didn't get to talk too much about it, but he said that Oslo. His big contention was that Oslo allowed settlements in Area C. And my understanding is that it didn't disallow them, but it also didn't explicitly allow them. Oslo just ignored the issue with settlements completely. I need to look into that, if he was right or not. He never really provided a source. He just said, read the Oslo agreements. And I was like, well, they didn't address settlement, so...
Basically,
Right, do you think that will do well in the
open
ballot?
borders. So Ryan, what
Yes,
was wrong with 19th century American immigration policy?
It was fine for the 19th century, but we're not in the 19th century anymore. You
Because
cannot
why?
have
Because
time.
why?
That's how time works. We leave a year and then we go to the next year.
To be fair, time is
and over
illusion.
many years, we're in a different century.
Excuse me, time is a
So
I read, I still have like the last chapter. I just haven't, we just moved on from intro
you
policy.
cannot have a 19th century immigration policy in a 21st century.
Yeah, no, I literally, after I read it too, I noticed, like, any podcast doesn't he win on, I was like, oh, he's quoting from Scars of War.
The Second Amendment from 1789, that one.
That has
1789,
nothing to do. I mean,
Which
I'm
is
not
right.
getting lost in semantics. The truth is, and I have this basic question to Chase and Robbie. What is the number? We bring in 1.1 to 1.2 million legal immigrants per year. That's not good enough. That's the most any country in the world takes. What's the number then?
Do you think the federal government knows the exact number of people who should be allowed to enter the country every year? They don't know
They
how
said
much
it.
lumber we should
They
have.
said
They
it.
don't. You
Do
can't
you? But they-
centrally
do you?
plan
But
the
they-
economy.
but they
I don't.
said it.
Markets should determine it.
So as many companies, so if I have a nonsense LLC that I'm using to get visas for people from India, Nepal, wherever,
Yeah.
and they're paying me, and I claim that's a business, but I'm just bringing in as many as I possibly can.
Bringing in people here to work and enrich our economy.
Yeah, sure, I can
and
make
be
them all.
like,
I
what's
can
the?
make them all mow lawns, and just sit there.
We don't need people to mow lawns. I don't like people doing work. That sounds great
No,
to me.
no, you don't though. But so as long as corporations sponsor, then that's our immigration system. They could so every
gonna
American
create
worker.
visa
Wait.
limits.
Every American worker then needs to be in constant competition with the cheapest labor in the world.
Yeah,
Oh my
that
God.
argument holds no water with everybody's in competition for
No, they're
other
not.
people for
No,
their
they're
jobs.
not. That
and
is not
that's-
true. Someone who mows a lawn actually in.
You have a right to a
in
lawn mowing
Virginia,
job at a certain
you are
wage.
not
This
in
is a leftist argument.
No, it's not. You're not in
It's
competition for a
explicitly
nickel a
leftist
day.
argument.
That's the truth, though. Mass immigration would absolutely deplete that.
Yeah, my
A company could constantly
great-grandfather
sit there and just
repaired
undercut-
horse and buggies for a living. Then a little thing called a car comes
But that's
around,
the-
and he doesn't have a job anymore. That's how
That's
the economy
not-
works.
so my question-
True. Yeah, they could just communicate the trade-offs of it, and B, the data behind it that shows immigration doesn't really seem to reduce wages that much. It only high school.
Your fundamental answer is
dropouts or
there should be
whatever.
no
The
limits.
economy arguments are nonsense. There should be limits for crime and
not-
violence.
so-
I
so
agree
there's
on the
no-
economy.
so
and
there's-
let's give
so
Chase a
it-
second here.
Yeah, so I think the number is the number that the economy wants to have workers who come here. That's the number that we're looking
But we
for.
have a welfare state.
Yeah, and I oppose it at every step of the way.
Great,
So what
but
do we
that
do
doesn't
now?
mean anything.
Yeah, how do you-
because the welfare state position is less popular than
Listen,
immigration
listen.
position.
I'm from,
Let's let Chase-
I'm from the state of
Chase-
Georgia, right?
vote
Agriculture is
We'll get a new Biden debate monthly. The public needs to hear Biden speak on a daily basis. Dude, his rally that he held after the debate yesterday was like really good. Like he was like really fucking hyped. Hold on. Fuck yeah. I love this, bro. Increase in home labor due to immigration. Fuck yeah. Why is this so low quality? Oh, what the fuck? Why? Okay, here's the graph. Oh, it's still low quality. Yeah, but immigration shifts to PPF curve right, which usually end up giving more jobs for Native people too. With the increase in labor at home from immigration, the production possibility frontier shift outward, and the output of both industries increases from point A to point B. Output of both industries increases because of the short-run nature of the specific factors model. In the short run, land and capital do not move between extra industries, and extra labor in the economy is shared between both industries. Problem with immigration is the scale. There's too many. I'm just not. I mean, one, the big issue again is our asylum law. So like, we can have conversations about how many immigrants that we should let in, but like, the best way to do that is by instituting an easier way to immigrate legally, and then we can place some caps on that. But like, yeah, I'm not convinced. Like, I don't know the exact number, but I think we can definitely sustain our current levels even.
One of our largest industries. Agriculture is one of the largest industries in the state that I'm from. And there are plenty of farmers who vote red every year, but they will tell you they need immigrant labor. They need people to work on the farm. And why do they need the labor? Because A, native-born people are not doing the jobs. Okay. Secondly, they know they need the labor because they need to have people who are there for planting and harvesting season. If we ease
I'm going to take an asylum as kind of delusion. I'm not going to lie, it's pretty much already overruled. Well, that's what's insane, is that like Biden's new executive order, for example, is just illegal. It is. Like, Biden's executive order, that's the asylum ban that he issued that capped asylum at like $2,500 per day or whatever. That's illegal. He can't do that. that is flagrantly unlawful. But he does it anyway because nobody's willing to like sue him on it because everyone wants to cap asylum. It's wild, yeah. Like, it's wild that he can just get away with breaking the law like that.
Immigration, we ease the ability for people to come here just to work. By the way, nobody is saying citizenship. We're all saying come here to work. If you want to come here to work, come here during planting and harvesting. Take your money back with you south of the border where you can be with your family. Right now, what we have is we have people coming to work on farms during planting and harvesting. They can't go back home because they know the difficulty of coming back up here. They send their money back home, and they stay here on charity and on welfare because they have to.
Okay, many people like 90% of what you say is completely nonsense. Because the farm visas are so large. Wait, farm visas are incredibly large. That's a total bullshit answer. But the one thing is one, all those jobs will be automated. If they're not already, we have machines that can pick strawberries, plant crops, pick tomatoes, whatever you want.
Okay, then they'll get a different job. What? Okay.
All those jobs.
We have jobs.
No, the problem is that
protect those jobs because we have to keep them.
No, we do them because you have.
Like, from the libertarian argument here, it's like, yeah, he's making a really good point. Should we protect those jobs then? The libertarian argument here is that we should let as many immigrants in as the market demands, right? So even if those jobs are automated, well, then the market will just demand less immigrants, so we probably shouldn't let them in.
Have a serving class. Taxpayers subsidize cheap migration so big farmers, big agriculture doesn't have to mechanize. Japan doesn't starve every year, and they don't have a million Mexicans walking across the border to pick rice. That's just the truth. Would Japan's economy be better or worse with immigrants? Because I'm pretty sure it would be better. It's kind of a non-argument. Subsidizing big companies with cheap labor. That's all you are. But you believe in the service. It's like Kelly Osbourne. Who's going to clean your toilet, Donald Trump? That is how you look at these people. They don't have to get citizenship. They don't have to get any protections. They can work for a nickel an hour, get their arms chopped off, ship them back to
the people. They don't want to do it. You're taking away their agency. You look at these people as unworthy of doing this. Get out of our country. They want to come here and do these jobs. And I say, also, you know what? The government should not get in the way of that. Right. There was a company over in, I'm sorry, last thing I promise. There was a company over in Chicago. They had 800 illegal alien workers. Finally, a black employee blew the whistle, and they found 800 black people in Chicago to take those jobs, and everyone got a raise. There is not a single industry in this country, not one, where a majority of the... It's just so fucking dumb. Like, he literally does not, like, just talk about the trade-offs. Like, yes, there were trade-offs, dude. Entire workers are foreign-born. We could artificially inflate the price of everything in the country by mandating that only people native-born be hired at a higher wage. Inflation is the #1 concern of people in America right now, and this is a proposal to make everything. That's another really good argument. It's an inflationary trade-off there. Like, you're reducing the labor supply. Okay, well, either that's good at, like, for example, Trump deported all of fucking 13 million migrants. Well, you're going to disrupt... You're going to disrupt production, right? So that's probably going to be inflationary because there's going to be supply constraints because people can't fucking find workers. 2, you probably are going to, since there's a decreased labor supply, wages are going to increase, which means businesses are either going to push that cost onto the consumers by raising prices, or even if they don't, now that wages are increased, there's going to be some amount of demand pull inflation from the increased wages, like. It's not destroying the currency, not any of that. It's just servant labor. Do you want higher prices?
Jack, say what you were going to say.
So we've been talking a lot about corporations, farmers, big ag. Ryan's talking about, and obviously we're talking about agricultural workers coming across the border, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about the concerns of actual American workers and American citizens. And the idea is that, unfortunately, there are people, and it's just natural that there are going to be people who are in that working class bracket. There are going to be families that are in that bracket, black, brown, white, whatever, that are going to be there. So what you're saying is that it's totally fine, and this is your platform. You're running to represent these people, Chase, in government. And you're telling them that it's totally fine by you that they should have to compete with people from other countries who are going to undercut them and put downward pressure on wages and put downward pressure on their ability to... Oh, downward pressure on wages? Okay. What is it? First of all, the empirical data shows that it really is not that much. You should be talking about, 1, what are the other effects that immigrants have? Because, again, they also drive up demand for products, right? So they're another person. They drive up demand for products, just like native-born workers also drive up demand for products and to some extent depress wages because they're because they're competition for other people, right? And then we just talk about, like, what are the trade-offs there? Like, even if I accepted that they depress wages by X%, what are the trade-offs? Well, do we want to pull up the CB Congressional Budget Office estimates of the tax revenue that we're getting from immigrants? Do we want to pull this up, dude? Get any? Oh, they're all right. So they all want to fucking cut the federal
budget by a ton anyway. So
jobs or get access to any of this market, but that's okay because it's good for the big ag.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you increase
Just
legal
don't know
immigration,
there's
these
one
people would be
simple trick.
undercut by being in the black market of
Do you
labor.
hope they vote for you?
No, these people would not be able to vote. These people would be coming here as immigrants. These people can come here to work. They can come here to compete on a level playing field as workers who are not here in the shadows, who are not here illegally, who are here with a legal status that allows them to actually compete with American jobs, thus stopping the undercutting of wages. You're not actually competing in a true free market, which should exist. Yes,
But
I'm going to
it's
support
still
free market
going to be
economics. Please let me
downward
finish.
pressure
Now, here's the other thing about this, is that immigrants create jobs. They create businesses. They create economic output. And this is things that Americans buy, Americans hire, Americans are hired by immigrants. So they increase the economic share. They increase the economic pie. And so for me to say, oh, well, all of a sudden immigration is bad. No, immigration is good. It has always built this country. It's what built this country in the 19th and into the 20th century with the mass immigration we had the last wave through Ellis Island. It will continue to build this country because that's what it's doing right now. It's building Fortune 500 companies that are creating millions of jobs right now. It's creating small businesses all over the country that are hiring people in mom and pop shops right now that are owned by immigrants or children of immigrants. I live with an immigrant success story. I live with somebody whose father came here, worked on a farm, and guess what? They're the first person to ever be educated, to go to law school, and now they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year more than they would if they had had their parents remain in Mexico, where they were from. So yes, I support the free movement of labor. I support the free movement of capital.
Okay,
I support
but do you at least admit, though, that there is a trade-off for the people who are currently living here now, who are in competition with all of these people that you're for bringing over for education, for work, for all of the things that you just mentioned? Do you at least admit that there's a trade-off there?
Can I
No.
answer that? I think
What's the
it's
pro- I'm ask-
largely
I'm
a
asking
positive
Chase.
trade-off.
I'm
is
asking
what
Chase.
there is a trade-off.
I'm not.
yeah, I was gonna say there's a trade-off, but like it's pretty heavily positive. And even then, the trade-off is like I don't know if they know that. I don't know like all the data behind it. I would have like a few links that we should probably read at some point. But most of the data show is like you're depressing the wages of high school dropouts, and like that's it. And it's like that is that really like that's what you're concerned about? Like you're so concerned about the high school dropouts? Fucking dude, the chat's awesome right now. Wages going down by 2%. That makes it not worth it to you?
Hearing an answer about trade-offs.
I'm saying there's a trade-off, but it's largely positive because we're all consumers. We're not all workers in the same field. Yes, whenever if someone starts another, if you work at a Blockbuster and someone starts another video rental company from you across the street, is that going to be good for you? Probably not. But the
You really
increased
do want an old system here.
increased competition
Blockbuster.
overall is better. For, like it's just the most basic
True.
like economic 101.
This is kind of.
to have
Are we all
more
on the
competition.
rails, by the way? Have we established
Can I
that?
say what
Ryan,
Chase said?
we can grab out the
This is such a
That's another thing. Yeah, he's right. The increased competition benefits consumers. Like it doesn't depressed wages to some extent would benefit consumers because goods and services would at least in theory be cheaper because of the increased competition. Like
nonsense argument though about Fortune 500 companies. There was like this whole entire report about them. They come from like 10 countries, none of which make up the top 10 people coming to this country.
Can we have more people from there?
Sure, Israel. That would upset Ryan a lot. Israel, Russia, France, Italy, China, India, Australia, Canada. There you go.
So we can have all the immigrants except the ones from Mexico and the South America?
Guess how many
he's
Mexicans
talking
have made a
about
Fortune 500
Fortune 500
company?
companies.
How many Mexicans have made a
Okay,
billion?
so
How many
Mexicans have a
Mexicans?
small business that's
How
the
many
largest?
Mexicans have made a billion-dollar company?
How many
No. You said mention Fortune.
how many Mexicans do you think work for those Fortune 500 companies and drive up demands for goods and services for those Fortune 500 companies?
500s. How many Mexicans?
Yeah, I also mentioned small businesses, which is the largest driver of creator of
LLCs.
jobs
It's
in this
people.
country.
It's LLCs.
This doesn't
This creates more jobs in the Fortune 500 companies.
No, they don't.
This is the
Listen.
Motte and Bailey here.
But how many is my question?
Workers
How many
equal Fortune 500
Mexicans have
companies.
ever made a billion-dollar business in this country?
I'm not worried.
One. Out of 11.7 million, one. You
Doesn't
have better
Carlos
chance
Slim
of being
own
struck by
Immigrants?
lightning twice than you do to find a Mexican national in this country making a billion-dollar business.
Okay,
Let's deport everyone who did not start a
100
Fortune 500 company.
True.
Let's just
True.
let
Fortune 500. Fortune 500.
All right, Ryan.
Israel made
Unironically, Israel's the 51st state would be based.
100 Israelis made Fortune 500
Is the worth of a human being based on how much money they
Yeah,
Clearly, because that's all you're talking about.
Right.
That's all you're talking about.
So people create communities, they create families, they create.
Your original
Yeah, they
question.
lose social
All
trust.
right,
and
let's
social
yield
capital.
to I don't roll as a moderator.
Oh
I'm
my
just
God,
making
this is
you
a
want
shit show
moderators
now.
to be allowed to jump in.
Yeah, you were asking about the trade-offs generally for families. Either you guys ever been to, and you mentioned at the beginning not being able to get a hospital bed. I'm sure you guys travel this country. You've been to medical centers or hospitals in rural America? Mm-hmm. Have you? Mm-hmm. What do you notice about the medical staff, the doctors?
Yes, there's a shortage.
What do you notice
of labor.
about both the shortages and what do you notice about the nationalities of the medical staff?
In
the doctors?
Kentucky that I went to, there wasn't a ton of. It was mostly white people.
Really?
Yes. And when I went to rural
Kentucky?
Look it up.
Well, maybe we should go to Texas and like the border states, dude.
Probably wrong though, but that's neither here nor there. Yes, we do.
How is that neither here nor there?
I think it's 10,000 a year the cap on Indian immigrants. A lot of high-skilled, highly intelligent people love to have more than
we're gonna get to that in a minute, actually.
Here's where
Yeah,
Rob is
go
completely
ahead,
wrong on that point, though. We get higher skilled immigrants when we have fewer immigrants from a certain country. So, perfect example, Algerians. We take in very few Algerians, but our Algerian immigrants have a higher education standard than our Japanese immigrants because we take so few. We take in very few Indian immigrants. India is a much poorer country, GDP per capita, than Mexico. Yet our Indians are far superior in income than our Mexicans are. Why? We took 0.003% of Indians.
I mean, it's just what's it called, selection bias or whatever. Like the most skilled Indian workers are the ones coming over here, right? Like it's the successful, rich, already like semi-rich Indian people that are coming over here versus like it's just normal people that are crossing the southern border, right? Like it's just a selection bias there.
And we took 16% of Mexicans' entire population. What happens when we take 10% of India's population, 145 million people? We get
a lot more doctors.
No, we get a ton of poor people. We get a ton of poor people and a welfare state that can't possibly.
I'm so confused. Like, what is point? Its point is just that like, what we should only have immigration from skilled people or like from rich people. Like we already have pretty good legal systems in place for. I think it's like if you show that you can create a business to create 10 jobs here, you can get citizenship pretty quickly, or at least like work authorization and stuff, permanent residency status or whatever.
Going to be a doctor.
And you educate them.
100%.
Of course, and because there's infinite money, there's infinite classroom sizes, there's tons of teachers that know every Indian dialect to sit there and teach them English. This is moronic. This doesn't exist in the real world. That's not how anybody actually lives.
Well, your last
that
name's
we
Gurdusky.
have a
I'm
nation built on
Jasinski.
immigration.
I
We're
imagine
living in
our
the world
ancestors
right
didn't
now.
come here with a whole lot of potential in the same way that H-1B
Well, on
visas
my dad's mom's side, they did come from the Mayflower. But when like my Italian and Polish shit, yes, my great-great-grandfather when he came from Italy didn't speak English or read in Italian. Do we want some... Congratulations. Well, do we want somebody who can't speak English or read in their own native language? What is the financial cost on us as a nation to educate...
Or the social cost.
Well, if you're having
my
endless
God.
immigration, right, no barriers, and 300 million people, because that's the number who want to come here. We doubled the entire U.S. population.
The real question here is everything's about trade-offs. It should be one, what's the cost of allowing an immigrant in versus what's the cost of that same of a native-born child, right? Because a native-born child also has to be educated, right? They for 18 years don't work and have to go through the education system. There's a lot of children on welfare, right? Like most of our welfare programs go to mothers with children. Versus an immigrant, most immigrants are coming here ready to work, right? They're coming here to work. They don't have to go through all of those costs. That should be what we're talking about here. And again, the trade-offs behind it, but they don't care about trade-offs.
The cost to educate the world's poorest is out. What are we, a charity? No, we are a country. These are our people. People can't afford to pay taxes now. I mean, the few that do, they can't afford to pay taxes now. Imagine paying the welfare state of the entire world in our country.
Yeah, so let's roll this clip actually of Donald Trump on the
So libertarians are just going to disagree with the welfare state anyway. So
podcast last week talking about actually a fairly common libertarian position, stapling green cards to people's diplomas who are here on student
Maybe
visas.
I'm going to vote for him instead.
We'll see what happens. Here's Donald Trump on All In.
15 minutes. The more important point, I think, Mr. President, is we need high-skilled workers in this country.
Yes.
We need to
the
recruit
worst person you know made a good point.
the best and brightest from the world. Every
I
time
agree.
we get somebody super intelligent from India
That's also true, Clifton. Okay.
or Europe, any country, that's
Three of us
one
are
less-
immigrants, sir.
Yeah, and 3 of the 4
Also, I don't think that I don't know where he's getting that statistic from. Like people mention the paycheck to paycheck shit and stuff, but like most people can't afford to pay taxes. That's an interesting take. I haven't really heard that one before, especially because taxes are on the margin, right? They tax you based on your like marginal income. Like,
here are immigrants, the ones without the ties. And we can get these great people into our country.
although there are obviously retail sales tax and like excise taxes that are regressive, but whatever.
And that's a loss for our adversaries and our competitors, and it's a gain for us. But I've never heard you talk about this. Can you please promise us you will give us more ability to import the best and brightest around the world to America?
I do promise, but I happen to agree. That's why I promise. Otherwise, I wouldn't promise. Let me just tell you that it's so sad when we lose people from Harvard, MIT, from the greatest schools, and lesser schools that are phenomenal schools also. And what I wanted to do, and I would have done this, but then we had to solve the COVID problem because that came in and sort of dominated for a little while, as you perhaps know. But what I want to do and what I will do is you graduate from a college, I think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior colleges too. Anybody graduates from a college, you go in there for 2 years or 4 years. If you graduate or you get a doctorate degree from a college, you should be able to stay in this country. And you know more stories than I do, but I know of stories where people graduated from a top college or from a college and they desperately wanted to stay here. They had a plan for a company, a concept, and they can't. They go back to India, they go back to China, they do the same basic company in those places, and they become multi-billionaires employing thousands and thousands of people, and it could have been done here. And a bigger example is you need a pool of people to work for your companies. You have great companies, and they have to be smart people. Not everybody can be less than smart. You need brilliant people. And we force the brilliant people, the people that graduate from college, the people that are number one in their class from the best colleges, you have to be able to recruit these people and keep the people.
Jack, Ryan, I mean, guy's making some sense, isn't he?
No, he's
I don't agree at all.
No, he's totally wrong. Because then you just make colleges, junior colleges, failing. Bernie Sanders' wife ran a college. It was a complete failure.
Into visa mills.
Bernie Sanders.
Legitimate president?
Bernie.
I wish.
Okay, so here's a question then. This is basically what you have there are venture capitalists.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know he walked it back, but I saw a lot of his supporters who are fucking asthmatic about it, so it doesn't surprise me that they did.
Billionaires basically begging Donald Trump to increase these legal pathways and to bring high-income immigrants or high-earning potential immigrants, more of them in. Is that anything that makes you uncomfortable as libertarians, or are you all for it?
I support bringing in people that the market wants to bring in. I think highly skilled labor is great. I think if you come to this country and you come to this country to get an education, yeah, you should absolutely be able to stay here if you want to stay here. If you believe that's where you're going to make the most money, that's where you're going to have the most economic input for yourself and for your family, yeah, I think you should be afforded that opportunity. I'm not opposed to that at all.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I can't keep up with where the right is on different populist issues. But it seems kind of counterintuitive that you would say, look, we're going to say no. If an immigrant graduates from an American college, we're not going to give them a green card. We're going to invest in that, and then we're going to build a school, and we're going to send them back to their country. They can work there. But we're also going to do giant tax cuts and cut the Department of Education and cut funding and do a bunch of charter schools and like undermine the university system and public education in the country, which then, from the perspective of those CEOs, are like, Christ, you're not letting me bring in the immigrants, and you're also not educating the already existing population. So am I wrong?
About a million things you just said.
Who am I voting for? I'm voting for my man, Joe Brandon, of course.
All right,
okay, so
like I said, I can't keep up.
You keep a lot of facts either.
This is the old Republican.
The best state in this country for education, K through 8, is Massachusetts. Not a big, not a big state for lots of charter schools. 57% of 4th and 8th graders in Massachusetts cannot read or write. And that's in the public school system. Among blacks, which is almost universal in public school, it's closer to 80%. That's our best state. That's not in a red state. That's Massachusetts. And I work in public education.
Wait, 80% of who can't read or write?
In Massachusetts cannot read. Lots of charter schools. 57% of 4th and 8th graders in Massachusetts cannot read or write. And that's in the public school system. Among blacks.
I'm pretty sure what he means is they're not reading at the 4th grade level. A lot of that, I would be curious when he got this data, because I'm assuming a lot of that is probably from COVID, right?
Which is almost universal in public school. It's closer to 80%. That's our best state. That's not in a red state. That's Massachusetts. And I work in public education, my 1776 project pack, all the time.
In the presidential, yeah.
Public education.
Well, I'm not. Where else can I vote for Joe Biden?
Improve it, make it better. Cutting the Department of Education doesn't change any of that. Making charter schools doesn't change any of that. Keeping kids in the way that we do schools, which is really just to sit there and reward public sector unions, is a miserable failure and a giant disservice to them. But it also doesn't matter for colleges, for venture capitalists.
40% of 4th graders in Massachusetts can't read or write. Doubtful, buddy. I'm guessing, it's probably post-COVID data. There's probably a lot of shit from COVID that has lagging effects, and we fucking need to fix it. I'm assuming it's at a 4th grade level, not that they can't do it at all.
Venture capital, what is going to happen is people in failed colleges will just say, hey, Bernie Sanders' wife, how did he fail college? She had to shut it down because it was a miserable failure. She'd sit there and say, you know what? Great, we'll port 1,000 Chinese a year. They'll pay for it. They'll get a nonsense degree, and then they'll get a visa for it. Trump University probably would have loved that plan. To sit there and get accreditation, to sit there and do a degree, charge people $10K, and they get American citizenship afterwards for any degree. He didn't say a high-skilled degree. You could sit there and go to Columbia University and wave Hamas flags and say death to Jews, and you get a visa.
I agree that the Department of Education should heavily regulate that. We agree.
Jack?
I mean, I largely agree with Ryan. I think what you're going to do is you're going to create situations, I've said it a couple times, but you're going to create diploma mills. And so you're going to have situations where the coursework is not rigorous. You're going to have classes where people are...
that's true. They have... Well, I guess that Chase Oliver has kind of mentioned that they create jobs, so that's it.
Barely get by on accreditation, and people are going to get visa mills out of this, and they're going to come in and say, well, guess what? Now I'm in the country. Now I can work. And most importantly, now if I've got a green card, I think it's 3 years right now, 5 years, or 5 years for green card right now. Now within 5 years, now you're voting for Democrats again, which again, this is what the Democrats want. This is what the left
Five is the light work, dude.
To increase. No, they wouldn't.
Trump would
no,
put
they
his
wouldn't.
face on there.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't.
But
They
that's separate from the question of
There's
justice.
It's just like, I don't understand. Like, they're literally, I don't like immigration because they don't vote for the people I like. If I look up Latinos shift towards Republicans. I think there's been quite a bit of shift towards even Donald Trump. Hispanic Republicans are... This is Hispanic Republicans. I'm just looking... Yeah. Oh, well, this is Cubans. Cubans is becoming more Democrat. I'm just... Nationwide shift among Latinos in 2020. The Democrats over a margin among this group dropped by 18 points relative to 2016. Cubans had the largest shift of 26 points, with Puerto Ricans moved by 18 points to Trump, Dominicans by 16 points, and Mexicans by 12 points. Yeah. Like, they're still mostly... I think they still lean Democrat, but like... it's definitely changing. And I really like what Chase Oliver said. Well, it's not my fault that Republicans are bad at appealing to them.
There's no evidence that Donald Trump wants to do. I don't think Donald Trump wants to do this because he thinks more people are going to vote for Democrats. And I think, again, this is a marketing issue of Republicans.
And then also the like really good argument you make here is like a lot of these people who are economic migrants probably don't really care that much about citizenship. What they care about is working here and giving money to their families. So if you let them work here pretty easily and give money to their families pretty easily and let them come and go relatively easily without any super heavy restrictions, they're probably going to come here and work for a little bit and never get citizenship, never even vote, because they're probably going to move back to Mexico or whatever.
Not an issue of immigrants, just inherently.
Not from a Democrat, for some reason, 80% of his viewers are race realists as replacement people, great replacement people. That's it. Listen, Twitch politics shares the same 20 viewers, so like, I'm stuck with what I got. It's like all of you guys also watch PPG and Gorps and OK Life and Casey Lee and Grumple and all those other people. So like it's one like fan base of 20 people and they are just shared between all of us. So it's not like the Democrats watch me when the Libertarians watch Gorps or whatever. It's just everyone watches everyone.
So what level of legal immigration are you too comfortable with?
We live in a two-party system. Yeah. 36 states. It's not a two-party system.
What levels of legal immigration are you too comfortable with?
Do you want to go first or you want Jack?
Low.
Okay.
No one talked about the real...
You asked...
Wait, did he say... Hold on, I was reading chat.
So 36 states. It's not a two-party system.
What levels of legal immigration are you too comfortable with?
Do you want to go first or you want Jack?
Low.
Okay.
Oh, low. I thought he said no.
You asked them what levels of immigration they would be comfortable with, so turning it back.
I would like net zero immigration.
He said zero, though. Net zero. Oh. I don't know. If you look up the CBO budget estimates for fucking net zero immigration, they look pretty bad, dude. Goddamn, net zero. Net zero immigration is the dumbest shit ever.
Net zero. That doesn't mean no one comes to the country.
Not for very long. Labor coalition coming July 4th.
No one comes in the country. It just means people leave every year. They die every year. If we're going to have stable and steady population growth over time, we would.
Which in the UK, I'd probably be Lib Dem. But
taken as many as leave, and they'd be the most skilled and the highest quality and the best doctors and whatever, but they wouldn't be someone's second cousin who came in through enough chain migration, which is how 60% of the people come in this country. It's not through these billionaires that Chase is saying or dreaming about. It's someone's second cousin who eventually got here through chain migration, or someone walked through the border pregnant, dropped the baby, and collects welfare, which is how most immigrants get their welfare and then gets through chain migration to that.
Yeah. Would you guys get rid of chain migration?
Lib Dem will. I don't know enough about UK politics, but I think I took the New York Times quiz, and I was mostly Labor, but I was Lib Dem for some things.
Is it feasible?
I would I would get rid of the welfare state. I would get, if they're taking out benefits that they're disproportionately receiving more from the state than they're giving in. Yeah, I don't want any of that. But we really disagree, I think, strongly on the economic issues. I do want to address the kind of like cultural and political aspect of this. Because on this, look, I'm going to be more, I think, charitable to your argument. Like, if we were in a situation where we were going to get overrun by immigrants that were going to like vote to undo the country and enshrine authoritarianism, Chase might not agree, but or maybe does, I don't know. I would personally think that we are not sentenced to just deal with that. I think it would be okay to consider that as an issue.
Robbie, there's a state called
Let him finish. Let Robbie finish and we'll come back.
Look, I am conceding and agreeing that if we were going to be overrun by people who are going to establish an authoritarian hellscape over us, yes, I would think we were going to take steps to prevent that. I think in Europe, they're dealing with more difficult immigration questions because there is more of a antagonistic culture of the Islamic refugees that are coming in there. But we are overrun by people.
Your country's run by a sleepy guy who can't form sentences and follows over shit based.
People who hate socialism, love Christianity, love Catholicism, particularly my religion, and want to work hard. They are like the most antithetical to the values of the United States are the most highly educated, most elite white and black people whose ancestors have been here for generations. If I wanted to make this country more like right-wing and based and patriotic, I would deport the existing population because they are the people whose values are antithetical to the right and antithetical to the church.
True, he would deport people just like me, just like the rich, educated white people. Yeah, I think you mentioned this earlier, but like most Mexicans are Catholic. Most people from Central America are like Catholic. They have pretty strong family values. Like,
Robbie,
no,
if that was true, why isn't one Latin American country like ours?
They're all leaving to come here. The ones who hate socialism.
What does he mean, like ours?
They are leaving to come here.
Hold on, it's really Mexico. Catholic. Oh, is Mexico Catholic? 78% of the population identifies as Roman Catholic. That's like 50% in the US. We're like, how much of US is Catholic? I think we're like 54% or something. 18.7. Oh, wait, this is just Catholic though. Hold on. Oh, Protestant. Okay, hold on. I should just do Christian. 69% of Americans identify Christian. Okay.
In a poll after poll, I think it was actually a Cato poll.
You came in after we did the most work and took the credit. Based, true.
Who believes in writing hate speech laws to limit the First Amendment? 82%.
Affluent white people.
No.
Graduates of Harvard.
No.
The richest and most privileged people.
I feel like that. Yeah, I feel like a graduate of Harvard is probably way more likely to support a hate speech law than like other people, than like first generation migrants or whatever. But maybe this polling data says the opposite. You know what? Since the chat's talking about Biden, dude, all I'm saying is like, we had fucking FDR in a wheelchair, okay? He's had fucking dude, he like didn't do any public appearances for like a year or 2 years or whatever. We could deal with Biden. That's all. Like we can deal with Biden. That's all. Like that's all I'm saying. Like really, what I think the Democrats probably should do is they probably should say they should probably say that Biden probably isn't gonna is not gonna serve its full term, but like even if he did. We could fucking deal with him, okay? Yeah. The U.S. is dealt with force. We can deal with it. We can deal with him.
Hispanics overwhelmingly support creating hate speech laws.
Liberal white women who are wealthy and graduate from Harvard are the highest demographic.
The liberal white women.
Find me one election, one presidential election, where they ever voted against the party that's promising welfare.
In the 2000s, when like 45% of Latinos voted
that's
for
not a
Bush.
majority one, and that exit poll is bullshit.
What about the Rio Grande Valley?
Exit poll is bullshit.
What about the Rio Grande Valley right now?
What, the one county, Stark County, which is a population of 3,000 people?
I mean, we're seeing surging support for Republican candidates.
Yes,
I would like to vote against the welfare state, which is why I'm probably voting for Chase Oliver. Yeah. I can't vote against the welfare state in the form of Donald Trump.
Kamala with Biden as VP. I think really we should do Kamala with Michelle Obama as VP, or Gavin Newsom as VP, or Pete Buttigieg with someone. Not such a drastic switch up. Yeah.
But they're taking the welfare massive government spending.
Ron DeSantis literally said in Medicaid in hospitals in Florida. This happened.
Well, I think Democrats should basically just run as a coalition. Basically, just say, "Hey, we're the Democrats. Biden's our leader for now, but he's not going to serve his full term."
2 days ago, you have to sit there and declare whether you are a citizen.
Because that would avoid a lot of the infighting that would come with if they just swapped out Biden completely right now. Like if they change the nominee, but at the same time, ease a lot of voters concerned, I think.
You qualify for Medicaid at hospitals in Florida. Medicaid spending in Florida in 1 year dropped 54%. By just asking that question as the population increased. Don't tell me they're not taking welfare.
You know what's funny? It's dude, Predicted didn't verify my ID. I did bet on Biden to win on Manifold Markets. I wanted to bet on Predicted too, but Predicted didn't verify my ID for some reason. Maybe it was just a bad picture or something, but I don't really know. Oh, I have 100 more? Thank God. That means I can bet even more on Biden. Hell yeah. Let's go, baby.
That's complete.
Get a woman president.
I didn't say they're not taking welfare. We should get rid of the welfare state.
Okay,
we all agree on that.
We should get rid of murder.
Pelosi
But
is
it's not the world we live in.
So does that change your?
We live in.
Does that
What we
change
live in as a
either of
nation
your?
has been built by immigration.
No, it was built by Americans.
Okay,
It was
so
built by Americans.
one second. One
I
second. Does the reality that we can't get rid of the welfare state change either of your positions on the board?
We also can't deport 20 million.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can.
yeah,
True.
we can. If we deport
That would cost a trillion.
Oh my God, dude. Let's just send it, dude. Let's just send in a military to deport 13 million people. That would be hugely expensive and also inflationary.
Okay, you're both big. I'm glad that the right has come around on sort of like the Patriot Act and surveillance of Americans being bad, and that the deep state and the administrative state is being totally weaponized against Republicans. They appreciate that. In order to deport 20 million people, it costs $1 trillion and would create a vast new system of government surveyance and control.
No,
Republicans would hate.
That's
would
not
hate it for good
true.
reason.
When SB 1070 happened in Arizona, there wasn't this wide. 25% of the illegal population left on their own. It's called self.
Why is the welfare state bad? I don't think the welfare state is bad. I'm a decent. Well, it depends what you mean by welfare state. I'm kind of a UBI guy. I think a lot of our spending. I'm pro giving poor people money. The best way to do that is probably through some type of UBI. I think a lot of the welfare systems that we have aren't super efficient because there's so many hoops you have to jump through or whatever. I think 2/3 of the people who are eligible for benefits don't receive them. And I don't think that I would take the Milton Friedman libertarian position. It's just so weird to me. The government gets people, the poor people become the slave of the government because the government tells them exactly how much they can spend on food and exactly how much they can spend on housing. I think it'd probably be better just to give poor people $1,000 a month and let them decide how they should spend money. Yeah.
Deportation. Republicans have been championed for over 12 years.
Studies in UBI have not been positive. That's not what I've seen. Most of the studies on UBI that I've seen at least are pretty positive.
This is what you do. You sit there and you make things like, hey,
they're just going to spend the money on drugs. Most of the studies in UBI seem to not support that they spend the money on drugs.
No Medicaid at hospitals. Hey, no, let's local police officers, if you get arrested for drunk driving.
I haven't done a ton of research into it. I've just seen broad. The only thing I haven't even read the full thing. I've just seen there's two meta-analysis that I have somewhere that show the seem to be pretty good.
There's no sanctuary cities protections for you, and you're
Fine,
getting
you get arrested for drunk driving? Out.
Go to jail.
Criminal
Go to jail and get deported.
Then you know what? A lot of people getting deported, you probably sit there and support.
Then
a lot of
20
people
million
in
number is getting
businesses.
down really fast now.
You're talking about.
I don't think a majority of. I don't think a large share of the immigrants are the drunk drivers driving down the road right now. I think most people.
Shocking.
I think most people who are immigrants
over
want to come here and they want to live their life in
alone.
peace, just like the majority of everyone. They just want to come here and work, live, create wealth for themselves, for their families, for their community. And so, yes, there are people who do bad things.
Trillions of dollars, we'd never be able to do it, and we're showing you exactly how to do it. Plus, by the way, E-Verify. So actually,
hold on, wait. How exactly would you do it?
For their families. Share of the immigrants are the drunk drivers driving down the road right now. I think most people.
Shocking.
I think most people who are immigrants want to come here and they want to live their life in
alone.
peace, just like the majority of everyone. They just want to come here and work, live, create wealth for themselves, for their families, for their community. And so, yes, there are people who do bad things.
Trillions of dollars, we'd never be able to do it, and we're showing you exactly how to do it. Plus, by the way, E-Verify. So actually
E-Verify
make it
is
illegal.
a slippery slope
Actually
to
make
security
it
state we do
illegal
not want to have.
to kind of like voting libertarians.
Everyone's on camera all the time anyway, including us right now.
That's a great picture of American people. Everyone's on camera all the time. You're on camera all the time. So make sure there's no illegal
Robbie, we're on camera right now.
We're on camera all the time. We don't make laws for people in foreign countries. We make laws for Americans. A majority of Americans want lower levels of legal immigration. At what point, Chase, you're running for president, do you take their vote into consideration? Because that's
I hate when people bring this up in debates when it's the majority of Americans want lower limits on illegal immigration. Okay, I don't give a fuck. I'm not here to discuss what Americans want. I'm here to discuss why I support, why I am in favor of illegal immigration. No, I'm here to discuss the trade-offs of immigration. I don't really care what the Americans think right now.
what they're asking for. I mean, is it just strict ideology?
Let's have Chase answer that.
Yes,
question.
yes, they are.
Let's give Chase a
They
chance
want
to
$1
answer.
trillion.
Yes.
Let's let Chase
I'd love to let the American people
Guys,
raise their hand to that
No,
question.
listen, here's the answer.
let's let Chase.
Listen,
Great.
the American public, they want to see an immigration system that isn't broken, that doesn't have so much turmoil going on our southern border. People want to see people be able to come here and work in a way that is orderly, that is not disorder and chaos. That is the problem at our southern border. That is what people are against. If we could have a system where we could easily move people in here to come here and work and actually have people move as the market demands, where jobs are needed, and then when jobs aren't, people will self-deport. They'll go where jobs are.
So what would you do right
They'll
away to
never
create
settle
that
down,
system?
They'll never buy a house.
So
they'll
what-
just
so
sit there and
what-
just
So I want a
like,
21st century
let's-
Ellis Island.
let's
All
get
you
this.
do, basically you pass a reform bill that says if people want to come through a port of entry, they must do it. They must declare who they are. Anybody who does not declare who they are is in here illegally and subject to immediate deportation. Come through our border, declare who you are, give your name and your background. If you're not a criminal, you're not somebody who's seeking to do harm here, come here,
Chase,
work.
Chase,
You're just gonna take the word
no,
for it.
but Chase,
No, I'm going to take the fact
Chase.
that we have 21st century technology that can do background checks on people that can.
The camera
Chase,
Background
Chase,
checks from where?
Chase,
From where?
Chase,
Where are you getting these background checks?
Chase, Ellis Island, there were 12 million over 33 years. It's 350,000 people a year. You want an Ellis Island every year.
So the funny thing is here, if you look at the U.S. population back then and the U.S. population now, it is actually bigger than it is back then. So as a percentage, it's basically the same. I think we're basically at like 13% or something, which is basically the same as it was in the early 1800s, or sorry, late 1800s, early 1900s.
There is,
So we had
that's
30
what you're
million
calling.
people.
What?
We have a population
No,
of like 30 million.
under his
That's a great
plan,
point.
under his plan of unlimited sources, you're asking instead of an Ellis Island every 33 years, you're asking for an Ellis Island every
But I'm
year.
not asking
And
for
by the way,
unlimited
one
immigration.
out of-
I'm asking for the immigration that can be-
whoever
that can
just
be
can get an
handled by the
LLC
market.
as a sponsor. And also, a third of people went to Ellis Island.
Yeah, we're like 13%, which is basically the same as it was in it says 1890 in the early 1990s. Yep. See, I was right. I should never even fact check. I should never even fact check myself because I'm always right.
Had to go home because they couldn't cut it. They couldn't be a drain on the system. They couldn't have a disease. And after they got here, a lot left after that too. 60% of things Southern Italians left.
A lot of Italians left.
Yeah, they couldn't make it. So this is whole dream of like Ellis Island is not real at all. This is like delusional, like libertarian.
which by the way,
fantasy.
making his point.
America
No,
actually already
I'm
existed
not.
before Ellis Island.
Yes.
As a matter of fact. So it wasn't Ellis Island that created America.
No, but Ellis
You keep saying
Island
that,
and
and also,
the
you know what-
influx of
do you
immigration
know what-
created millions of jobs, millions of businesses and communities all over this country. It's the reason why we
Yeah,
have.
and you know what?
Yes, it's the reason why we
Revolution.
have a deep. It's the reason why we have Italian Americans,
state.
Irish Americans,
Wait, every year the population of Iceland is confirmed to come across the
Polish
border.
Americans, German
True.
Americans, Americans from all over the world that come
So if you look at our population, though, and the percentage of people coming over,
here. It's the reason why America is exceptional. If you want to make
like the graph I just showed.
America
I
great,
noticed
we
you
have to
only
follow.
mentioned Europeans.
No, I mentioned the people who came here during Ellis Island.
Do
But
you
the
know
truth
what
is if we want to make America great, we have to continue the
But that's
process.
also
of
true.
this
Do you
country
know
up
what that also that
migration.
population of Ellis Island did? They were the backbone of FDR's Great Society. They actually did half of the programs that you're opposing. They were the ones who built the FDR
They
coalition.
created the
Ellis
welfare.
This is I love FDR's Great Society. This just sounds based to me, dude. What, dude? What, dude? They're gonna vote for people I like, dude. They're gonna support welfare state, dude. Based, holy
Island
crap.
generation and their children. That's what immigration did. We were a far more, less tax and a far more, I guess, generally free country.
It jumped up since Biden. Can we pull up the graph again? It's really not. It did jump up when Biden became president, but like it's really about the same as it was in 2000, in the 2000s even. Here we go. Look, see how it's about the same? The reason it looks higher is because this black bar here is the estimated number of successful unlawful entries. We used to not have as good a border security, so there was a greater number of gotaways who evaded border patrol and weren't even captured on camera. Now we have cameras on like almost all the entire southern border, right? So anyone that crosses the border while evading border patrol, they're a known got away because we know they got away and evaded border patrol. If you include the estimated numbers of people who evaded border patrol in the in these years ago, you can see the immigration now is really not much higher than it was back then. And I think this is percentage of population. Yeah, percentage of the population. You can see it's even lower than it was in the 90s. But really, our border security got better, which is why it looks like there's a big spike. But really, it's just our border security getting better.
Before that generation, but we traded in. We said, hey, we want to be more like Italy and more like Eastern Europe that believes in those values. We stopped in 1924 thanks to Calvin Coolidge. You know, we didn't stop Argentina. And they went from being a country richer than Europe to a country poorer than Europe because they sat there and they accepted those values and they changed a country. Bring in the whole world. And we will be living in a different country.
Comparing our economy to Peronism is the most apples and oranges.
They were close to as wealthy as us before Peronism. Peronism happened because the Italian
That's a
immigration
tangent.
stopped.
To be fair, that is a
Aren't you
tangent.
conceding my point that all the scary big government stuff we hate is
Because
the
of mass
values
immigration.
is the values of the people we already have here, not the values of the people we're bringing in?
No.
That's my whole point.
So more
The people
Nigerians?
who
No,
are
Chase,
most
Robbie,
opposed to Donald
that's-
Trump and his agenda are, again, the most affluent, privileged,
Name a
well-educated
single election.
citizens of this
Name
country.
a single election.
Wait,
a
wait,
single.
wait,
No, no, no.
Robbie,
A
you
single.
just need
No,
to
a
support
single.
liberals?
Name a single federal election.
If I wanted to deport, yes, basically.
Name a single federal election.
Well, how
where
about this? This is a
foreign-born
question you-
population voted for the Republican for less government, for the Libertarian for less government. Name one time.
I mean, I would argue that
It's never
voting against
happened.
Republicans is not
Answer.
voting for less government.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
literally.
a dang good point.
Bro. Still can't believe Biden threw the election to make true. Welcome to the stream, buddy. What's it gonna say?
Voted for the Republican for less.
Oh my god, yeah, it's just a dumb point. Like his point here is that like seems like a lot of well-educated white people, right? The white liberal educated women are also voting for bigger government policies. Should we deport them?
Government for the Libertarian for less government. Name one time.
Dang good point.
How about you guys vote?
Ronald Reagan lost their vote. Ronald Reagan won everyone's vote, but he lost it foreign born.
Okay, how about this? How about this? What if we could have it? They don't vote. They come here and they work.
They're
but they
just
don't
part
vote.
of the servant class. Yeah, why not? You know what? Why not?
Yeah, again, the big argument here should be, well, if you let them come in legally and just work for a certain amount of time before they probably give money to your family, eventually go back to Mexico, they probably wouldn't end up voting anyway.
Many of them would take that deal. Many of them would say, I would love to come here.
They get welfare.
They don't get welfare and they don't
Oh
vote.
my god.
They get welfare and they don't vote.
They don't get welfare, they
So
don't
their
vote.
kids won't go to schools. So if they chop up their hand, they won't go to a hospital.
They pay
So they
for
won't
schools,
drive on the roads that we drive
They're
on.
going to pay sales tax.
Oh,
they're
you know,
gonna
the
pay-
sales tax that'll do.
This
That'll
is-
cover
Sales tax,
completely
schools
all
are
their
funded by
children's.
taxes.
But again,
The $35,000
we're not
cost to them.
discussing
The
anything
statistics
of how this
are not
affects
in your
people
favor.
here.
That is
When you look
100% in
when
my
you look
favor.
at Texas, when you look at
No, that's not true at all. They are definitely in the libertarians' favor here.
Texas, second largest state in the country, second largest number of illegal immigrants
I don't want them to get abused by our capitalist system. True.
in the country. And when I say they,
But you want them to get abused by the capitalist system back at their... You realize even if you think capitalism is evil, right? Whatever. We probably agree on some of that, right? Because I'm not like, I'm a fucking Keynesian, whatever, okay? You realize the capitalist system back home is abusing them worse than the capitalist system here. That's why they want to come here and get abused by our system. Because it's hurting them less. They get paid more.
pay more in
And then they
taxes
help the family back home too, because usually they send remittances. So
than they
That
take.
is not true
That
at
is
all.
what studies have
You know,
shown.
no, you know why
Study after
no,
study has shown
no,
this.
no, no. You know why this is wrong? Because you don't measure by illegal immigrant. You measure by foreign-born household. Because people who generally take from the welfare have an American citizen child. That's how they do it. They get free lunch care. They
tourist sales tax. They pay, or tourists pay sales tax. So they get the right. True.
It costs what, $30,000 to send a kid to public school in Texas? Do you think the average illegal is paying $30,000 a year in taxes if they have 3 kids, $100,000 a year? Are you joking?
So let's see the tax revenue side of those kids, huh? So those kids, right, actually do this thing where they grow up, and then they do this thing where they work, and when they work, they pay taxes. So let's see the tax revenue side of those kids, buddy.
That is not at all covering even the basics. That is just a lie.
Well, Texas would collapse economically, wouldn't it?
Because they don't pay it because we have enough wealthy people that keeps the system moving.
Well, and
that's why also home taxes.
What's bankrupting the welfare system again is native-born older people who living forever now, with good reason. People living longer, younger people who come over who are working are not like taking as much out of the medical costs and all that.
Why should we
Listen, I would also argue every adult is
bankrupting.
They were able to cut 54% of Medicaid spending in 1 year in Florida by asking if they're legal or not legal. I'm sure
Social Security is going to go bankrupt because we don't have enough people to pay into the system anymore. We have too much.
Dude, I remember one time I looked into some basically I was preparing for immigration debate or so on. I forget exactly what happened. But there was this one study that people often cite talking about the percentage of immigrants who take Medicare or whatever and use welfare. The big flaw of this study was that I think the issue was they just took the immigrants' percentage of the population and then assumed that the percentage of immigrants who use Medicare was the same as the percentage of native-born people that use Medicare, versus actually getting data on what percent of immigrants use Medicare. That was the big flaw of that study. And then somebody quoted another study at me, and it had the exact same fucking problem. I don't know if I have it written down anywhere, but yeah, here we go. It's right here. It's a Heritage Foundation study. Counts the benefits consumed by the wait, never mind. Estimates that illegal immigrants consume an amount of medical healthcare coverage and AFDC and SSI income transfers and state aid. Yeah, basically assume state get all the welfare benefits proportional to the share of population. But this is a vast overstatement in cost because overall immigrants consume 55% less in healthcare per capita than natives. Yeah, the big issue is that God, why do I ever fact check myself? I'm always right. I always have perfect memory and I'm right on everything every time, except when I'm wrong. Don't pull up any clips where I was wrong. Yeah, they just assume that they get their share proportional population. It wouldn't surprise me if he was citing either this study or this study, and they both have the same issue. Yeah. Okay, hold on. We should read these two studies later.
Yeah, this
Right,
is a
so bring
conservative.
over the
This is
poor,
not,
they will
not
cover
arguing. We all
everybody.
agree on that. We
Yes,
need,
I'm sure there's millions of
we
Venezuelans that
need
would
people
just
to
do the system.
work to make this. I mean, I would privatize the system and.
And Robbie,
Let's let Chase go. Let's let Chase go.
We're talking about the welfare state. We're talking about education. The truth is every working age adult who comes in this country and works never had to go through the socialist education system that costs the taxpayer money. Never had to go through all the costs that it comes to raise somebody in this country. They came here to work.
They came here. They're ready to work now, baby.
But that's 47 years old and
actually
they
part of my
have their
point.
own children.
Is why are you prioritizing
Yeah, and their
those
children
people?
They have their own children, and the children pay taxes.
Go to this country
And
as
they go through the
citizens.
same social school. I don't understand.
And they
the
start
point of your
businesses,
story.
they start their own, and they
Yes,
pay their own
everyone
taxes.
has
What are the age of their children?
No,
They're in their 20s. They're working age.
No, usually they are not as successful as their parents in many cases, and they get family chain migration. That's how they come. They sponsor their siblings, they sponsor their adult parents. That's why it's so old. I mean, that's why also the legal immigrant crime rate is so low, because we have so many middle-aged, average legal immigrants middle-aged, average criminals not. And if you were to split it by race, white Americans have the same crime rate as Canada, black Americans are the top most dangerous places in the entire world, and Hispanics fall somewhere in between.
I
That's
agree on that.
That's the facts of the matter case. So, go ahead.
Well, would you support bringing, for example, higher levels of people from Nigeria? Or I think you even mentioned, one of you mentioned Algeria.
Algeria, yeah.
Well, but Nigeria as well. I mean, Thomas Sowell talks about Nigerian success stories.
Yes, they're super successful because we take so few of them in.
The selection
That's the
bias.
reason.
Yes, because we cut the.
Because it's not because we take so few of them in. It's because the people who can afford to migrate from Nigeria are the already successful ones. It's the selection bias there.
Cream. We take the very, very, very excellent, the very best.
It's just a selection bias.
Because there were so few Nigerians to start from, they don't have chain migration in the numbers that say Mexicans do.
So there isn't a cultural reason that you're saying it's the vetting because we take higher
If we took
potential Nigerians.
0.003% of every nation's population based on skills base, instead of, let's say, 16% of Mexico, we would have huge wealth and more wealth in this country. Because it's unlimited, because it's unvetted, because it's poor workers, because it's H-1Bs who replace American tech workers, we don't have that. And that's the truth. And because of chain migration, they bring in their second cousin who just wants to get on American welfare rolls, and they do it.
Well, and here's a good question for you guys. Has the years of an H-1B program, for example, actually in ways that it's hard to quantify, it's hard for us to understand, but has it created a job market that has disencouraged American college graduates from seeking those jobs that are just have for years been occupied by H-1B visa holders? It's not even an option, perhaps, for a lot of people to think of it.
I would argue having more skilled workers, whether they're immigrant or native born, actually creates more economic activity, allows more business to create and more jobs to get created in the end. And so, no, I don't. I think it increases the overall size of the economic pie. I understand there's competition in the marketplace. That's a good thing. It is good to have competition in the marketplace because the most efficient businesses survive, those who don't fall away. I know we are all in agreement here that we oppose the welfare state. That is a different thing entirely.
Except for Ryan Grimm.
Except for Ryan. But other than that, other than Ryan, we all oppose the welfare.
And me. I love the welfare state, kind of. Nuanced precision, as I described earlier. I like UBI and negative income taxes.
State. That is an entirely different issue than immigration. If we
No,
didn't
it's
have a
not.
welfare
No, it's
state,
not. They're intrinsically
if you didn't have a
connected.
welfare
That's
state,
not
you would
Mary
still have people
Rothbard thought they were
that
connected.
you would still have people coming here for a
That's
better
not
life.
true.
And people don't just come here only for wealth.
36% of our population between ages 18 to 64 are not in the workforce. They're not in school, they're not retired, they're not in the workforce. And that number has been getting lower and lower and lower since the Wall Street, whatever it was, the Wall Street riots, or the hell it was.
The hard hat riots.
No, Wall Street, that happened
The Occupy Wall Street?
2007.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. I see what you're talking about. Okay.
You mean
Occupy, yeah.
2011.
Since Occupy Wall Street, that number's getting lower and lower and lower. As much as mass immigration serves as a deterrent for some workers to get into the workforce. That is a complete thing. People don't go into the workforce. There are thousands of Americans.
Chat, you know what I found? I think I'm technically, in a way, I'm in the workforce because or I could be, because technically, I think if I as long as current trends continue, I will earn more than $200 in revenue by the end of this year, hopefully, and then therefore, technically, I could make an LLC. I think you only have to have $200 of revenue to make your own LLC, and then and technically, I'd be in the workforce then. Well, just sitting here on my ass being a streamer all day.
Who have medical degrees, who then don't become doctors. And partly because the hospital system benefits on visa workers. So they literally make it as hard as possible for people with medical degrees to get into the hospital systems. I would say, let's tap our own American base, full of millions of people not in the workforce, and give them some kind of job. Because what's going to happen is with AI, with technology, the number of blue-collar, working-class, cheap jobs that everyone's is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. As the population of illegal immigrants grows, 1 million a year, mostly of that same pool, millions of Americans without a high school degree or a college degree will be in that pool. And what will they turn to? What will they turn to when they can't get a job? Technology is taking their job. They're going to take to the politics of authoritarianism, whether it be socialism or fascism. Someone will be to blame. The reason Hugo Chavez destroyed...
Again, the libertarians' argument here is like literally we should let as many immigrants in as the market demands, and if the market demands less immigrants because of automation, well then problem solved,
one of the
dude.
most prosperous countries in all the Western Hemisphere, because he said they are rich because you are poor because they are rich. Come with me and we'll take their golf courses. That's what's going to happen here. As you crunch the entire population of America's working class between AI and mass immigration, you will have tons of people from the third world here and our own people who will be unable to find a job, and they'll turn to politics and not your kind of politics for the solutions.
This is becoming, though, just an argument against any technological
That is not my
innovation,
argument,
any improvement
I can
in
throw a softball anywhere and
he can miss it. Just let him finish.
Yeah, you can make the same arguments, again, for any development that destroyed some jobs, made that job no longer economically viable for people in this category, and then created other jobs. The government didn't force us to stay in the inefficient mode because that would make no sense. You're coming close to endorsing autarky, which would involve population controls. This argument holds, if you're trying to say that there's this finite amount of resources, and the more people there are, the more we have to spend. That's an argument just against having more people in...
So immigrants actually pay taxes and actually contribute to the taxes too.
General,
buddy.
But that is...
that is economically illiterate.
No, but
because
what the
people
government did
create
do, the government said,
value
you
when they
can't
come
come
in
here
at every
anymore.
level.
In 1924, when we said, let's reduce legal immigration, all the way to 1970, we have the highest middle class. We have the highest middle class
country of 100 people.
But Robbie, you're historically illiterate. We
You're
literally had more
economically illiterate.
No, yes, you
You
are.
failed economics 101.
I
This
did
is the
not.
most basic argument.
I'm
Robbie,
just
between
illiterate.
1924 and 1964, was the country more prosperous or less prosperous? Because we had fewer immigrants than we did in the generation
It's not more
beforehand.
prosperous than it is today.
Wait, what years?
Wait, what? Hold on.
It's 101.
I
This
did
is the most-
not. You're historically illiterate. We
You're
literally had more
economically
prosperous.
illiterate.
No, yes, you
You
are.
failed economics 101.
I
This
did
is the
not.
most basic argument.
Robbie,
I'm just
between
illiterate.
1924 and 1964, was the country more prosperous or less prosperous? Because we had fewer immigrants than we did in the generation
It's not more
beforehand.
prosperous than it is today.
It's a fucking dumb argument. Anyway, I want to find the revenue projection with immigrants versus without immigrants. Increase tax revenue at 1.2 trillion, reduce deficit by 9 billion. And then, yeah, with the assumption that they have lower than average income, even. I'm trying to look. I thought there was a graph that showed the projection with immigrants versus without immigrants, but yeah, even this says that it'll reduce the deficit. There's that funny the Twitter memes where that one guy was like hopefully it's not that far down. Oh, God damn it. Yeah, here we go. Biden's flood of illegal immigrants will cost the taxpayer $278 billion. Great. Let's see the tax revenue side. Oh, increase in revenue? Oh, there's a massive increase in revenue? Oh, and there's a $900 billion decrease in deficit? Dude, that's crazy. Dude, that's fucking wild, dude.
Today?
Wait, what years are you talking about?
24 to 64.
You want to live in
We were
1924?
more. 64 with prosperity, with a higher middle class.
Yes, that's where I talk about the
Yes.
economic illiteracy. We are by every definable characteristic better off
Yes,
today than
because the poor have a
1960. The
higher
average
living
house
standard, but the
homes
average-
were smaller on average. People owned fewer cars on average. They had fewer consumer electronics in their
Because
house.
they
They're more
moved out of
expensive.
poverty recently.
Everything they had was worse then.
Because of technology.
That's what I'm talking about. Technology happens when you allow workforce to come in and work for your companies.
No, we didn't need a new workforce from 20. So no technology happened from 24 to 64. Nothing.
It got better from that period. It's gotten better since. Because
we had no immigration during that period. We had no immigration. You're making my point. We had no immigration for 20 years. It was extremely limited. It was literally few from Western Europe, which went through a war. You're talking about the most prosperous growth periods in American history, just pure growth, and we had very little immigration. Canada,
sorry, the marginal tax rate was also at 90%. I don't think that's what created the wealth or the growth of our country. But correlation is not causation.
Canada and the UK have had the most robust immigration they've ever had in their history. 40% of all the immigrants who ever came to the UK came in the last 10 years, and they're in a recession, and so is Canada. If immigration created prosperity.
True. Why aren't we in a recession, by the way? If we look at the I really hope we mention this later on, that all the new jobs go to foreign workers. A big reason that why we're not in a recession right now is because of immigrant labor.
Literally, the most.
It literally does.
No, it doesn't, because Canada is in a recession, and so is the UK.
Why hasn't it created prosperity in the country?
It's created amazing. Are we talking about GDP?
No.
Let's just look at that.
Hold on. Come on. Where is it? Fuck. I'll find it.
Immigrants from a handful of countries, enormously successful.
What are we talking about? GDP? What are we talking?
This isn't the grant for but immigrants account for everything U.S. job growth. Yeah. Because a lot of the boomers retired early, the immigrants were the ones who picked up most of the slack in the labor market. Like, a big reason that why we're not in a recession right now is because immigrants picked up a lot of the slack in the labor market, dude. That's a big reason why our economy is doing so much better, why we have the highest real GDP growth in the G7 compared to other countries that didn't accept as many immigrants.
Talking about to measure the prosperity.
How are we measuring prosperity? Prosperity for the multinational corporations or prosperity for the average household?
Where's this prosperity? Capitalism? There's a lot of disparity.
Prosperity for the average American household.
GDP per capita has been stagnant.
I thought it was among right-wing people.
No, average GDP per capita has been pretty stagnant overall since, I don't know, the 80s where mass immigration.
Average GDP per capita has been stagnant since the 80s? Or he said average GDP per capita. Wait, average GDP per capita US. I don't think that's been cited. There are other things that have been stagnant since the 80s. What's it? Okay. GDP per capita versus median household income. This has stagnated a little bit since 2000 or 1999. I don't think GDP per capita stagnated out. Stagnated worse in all the other countries that haven't accepted immigrants. Some of them.
I'm talking about bigger homes on average.
Adjusted for inflation, wages have been
doing
pretty stagnant for over 30 years.
That's true.
No. I can't, dude. I don't even think that is true. It depends on how you measure inflation. The Cato Institute, which is again a libertarian organization, actually has a lot of studies about this. It's a really complicated question, but it's probably not true. If you adjust for the decrease in household size, if you use PCE instead of CPI, and if you there's a third thing that you try to adjust for. It looks like real median household income has been increasing decent.
When we had mass immigration, the largest numbers ever.
Wages have been stagnant.
When we had mass immigration, huge rates of growth.
We got a couple stats here. So 1920 census, which followed an explosion of immigration over the previous 50 years. Those people continued to reproduce. The population of 1920, the population in 1920 in the United States was 106 million. The population by 1970 was 200 million. The population doubled in this time period where you're saying there was no population growth.
No, I didn't say population growth. We had immigration.
But it was immigrants who were fueling that population growth.
No, that's not right. We took an immigration
So immigration was good for 50 years, then good not to have it.
We had pauses because we needed to assimilate millions of people. That's what happens. People assimilate people. We took a 50-year pause. I think immigration was about 100 to 150,000 a year. Over the course of 50 years, that would be how many? 6 million of that 100 million? No, there's something called a baby boom. The average family had 3.5 children. That's what it did. Catholics, I think, had 4 or 5 children at the time. That's what the growth was. It was American growth, not immigrant growth. I know you're very unusual to that, but that's what's American growth.
But I agree on the cultural assimilation. Like in theory, I agree that we need to take those things. I just don't agree on the economic stuff at all.
Okay, so what else do you have?
But the culture, again, the people we're taking in, who I disagree with you, I think are beneficial to our culture because they're more.
Who make billion-dollar businesses. I would agree with you. And don't take any welfare, but that's not the case.
What else did you have, Ryan?
Nothing.
Another big thing, you have to adjust for increases in compensation that aren't wages, because workers have seen increased non-wage benefits in recent years. Employers are more likely to contribute to 401ks or to contribute to health insurance as well. If you adjust for that, it looks like real wages have been doing pretty good. Real median household income, yeah, Yeah. This is from a YouTube video I made. Actually, it's a script for it. So I can't believe Reacting Destiny got more views than this shit, bro. But from this video, look at it. Look at all the graphs. Yep, pretty wild. Okay, anyway.
Okay, great. Well, as we're moving into the second hour here, I mean, this was heavy on.
Oh God, what? Wait, oh no.
There's another hour.
Are you serious?
Or not. I think we solved it, right?
Yeah, I think we're all good. But what I was going to say is we talked heavily about economics. We touched a bit on crime in the beginning. But let's talk right now, just as we're wrapping up the sort of economic portion, and then we'll move on to crime, humanitarian concerns. What do you guys think? I'll start with you guys over here. Is the one economic thing that these guys are missing, and then I'll give these guys an opportunity to say what the one economic thing you guys are missing is, the one thing that you don't understand or you're not factoring into your argument.
I mean, they claim foreign-born households produce more than they take. That is completely not true. You could look at Stephen Camarada's numbers on this. You could look at a bunch of other people who've sat there and done this. It is completely.
Stephen, what do you say? Stephen Camarada? Let's see. Let's see if that's one of the papers. Is this by Stephen? Whoever? Spencer? Nope. Okay. What about the Heritage Foundation one? It'd be really funny if it's this one. What? Hello? And it's not by them, but apparently. Where the fuck it? If it's that Joe Biden can lead America to its communist future, absolutely. Joe Brandon is the best, is the proletarian, whatever. Okay. Well, I didn't quite quote the two studies that I know are flawed, but look, I put so much money in Joe Biden. Oh, they gave me 100 more for my 2-day prediction streak. Okay, hold on, let me bet more yes on Joe Biden real quick.
Completely inverse between education, school lunches, jails, hospitals, Medicaid fraud, the series of other frauds. If they cash assistance programs, they take an enormous. It is a net negative overall, and the fact that they don't take welfare is a total lie.
Go ahead, Jack.
Okay, why didn't you want them to respond, or?
No, you go first.
All right. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll just say it again, and I've been saying it over and over, and it feels like I'm one of the only people here who is even mentioning this, that the economic effect that it has on the people who are currently here. That it puts, I mean, Chase, you're going to go on this campaign, and I'm sure you've been to many states already. You're going to go to the Midwest and the South and these economically depressed areas and say, guess what? The way out of this is more immigration, to bring more people into these areas. Go up to Minnesota, that's already seen a massive influx of Somalians.
So I listen. It's just like a really. Let's just open myself here. Okay. So here's our country. Okay. Yeah. This is the production possibilities curve. This is all the things that our country produces. This is good A. And good B. Okay. So immigrants actually do this really, really cool thing, right? So currently, with all our resources, we can produce anywhere on this graph, any point on this graph. We could produce here. We could make all guns, or we can make all butter. Immigrants actually do this really cool thing, my guy. Listen to this. Listen to this. Okay, this curve of all the things we can produce actually goes from there to here. And you'll notice, just we can actually make more stuff. Our economy is actually bigger when we do this. Isn't that wild? How it does that? And what's even more interesting? Okay, even more interesting than that. The big reason for that is because of the increase in labor, right? The immigrants bring. The U.S. population is actually shrinking. The working age population is shrinking. So even though immigrants will do this, right? What no immigrants will do, what net zero immigration won't keep us like this. what net zero immigration would actually do is bring us like this. And that's a horrible line, but this is really bad. This means we shrink. We're worse off. We can produce less stuff. Yeah, that's what's really scary, is that not only we're not just maintaining this with net zero immigration, we're actually going down. Whereas more immigration would either keep us here, or way more immigration would make us expand. Yeah. Wild. No, it's hard for him to understand that.
Say, guess what? We're going to have more of that, and that's going to help you. I mean, I don't know if that's good politics, buddy, because I don't think that's something that those people want to hear.
All right, you guys each.
So I've actually traveled campaign trail. I've spoken to a lot of people about immigration. One of the things I hear most is that the process itself is broken and needs to be simplified and fixed, and more people can come here legally to work. I talk to business owners in El Paso who say, I would love to hire some of these people who are here living in shelters right now, but they have no legal status to work. I live within the 100-mile border patrol zone. So if I hire them, they can literally burst in the door, ask for papers, and take people right out. And so, yes, I talk to people who understand that immigrants do create wealth in this country. They do create prosperity for themselves and for other people. They allow businesses to hire people, yes. And I understand.
You do know that not only business owners vote, right?
No, and I understand that, no, but not all business owners vote, but so do their employees, so do their consumers, so do other people who are involved in creating economic wealth in this country. All right, I understand you mentioned the working class, the blue-collar folks out there who have to compete.
You'd be willing to debate the dumb stream is a white nationalist who's anti-immigration. He has an X account with the username. How big is he? Maybe. I want to do more research into Trump stuff right now. That will involve some immigration research, maybe, actually. This person's not real. Link me something. Don't,
compete for jobs. They have to right now compete for jobs in a broken system where immigrants...
Oh, sorry. His X account handle is this. I don't know if it's... Yeah, was that his Twitch that you gave me? Just link his Twitch. I don't know why you... That. Maybe. I'd have to prepare for it. Twitch. Oh, YouTube. Depends how big he is. Depends how worth it would be. I have more stuff than him, but he gets views. I don't know. Oh, page not found. Oh, he seems to get suspended. I'd have to have some time to prepare for it, so I could quote a lot of the immigration data and stuff. But yeah, maybe.
Come through into the shadows and can undercut wages. Let immigrants come here and compete one-on-one for an equal wage and see who does the best work. The best work should get hired. That's the way the market should work. So but it doesn't today. No, I don't support minimum wage. Okay. I support the wages that the market would bear. I support the work that the market would bear. That's how we actually have true competition. What we have right now is a one-sided argument where people can come here in the shadows. They work for far less than they probably should because they're allowed to be exploited because someone can say, if you don't work for the wage I give you, we'll just get you deported anyway.
So amnesty.
All right, so Suave, what's the one thing they're missing?
So much of the problems in our country are created by government artificially creating shortages. It is particularly pronounced in the housing sector. We can't build things in this country anymore. I mean, so many Republicans and Democrats want to bring back factory jobs and factories. You can't get through the red tape required to do it. There is too much restriction on all of these.
Tell my man, Joe Biden passed the Chips and Science Act. Why, dude, my shit, the lighting is like off. Oh, I'm just like blue now. What the hell? Okay, well.
Things on building things in this country, we can't do it anymore. And one of those reasons is a restriction on the labor pool. I want this to be a great country. It would be like artificially saying, oh, we have too much lumber, too much steel, we don't want any more. We can't have any more of that come in. It's going to suck up resources or something. It is itself a resource, these things. And that is true of labor.
True.
We need to be a great country that builds things again, and the government is killing us at it. Immigration is part of it.
All right, so as we're beginning again the second hour here, we've talked a lot about economics. We're going to talk now about national security and humanitarian concerns. We do have a clip to set this up. This is an interview that was taken just at the border recently. We'll roll the clip right now.
Okay.
By the way, if you are smart enough, you will know who I am. But you are really not smart enough to know who I am. But soon you're going to know who I am. Very easy.
Wow, very easy. The entitlement.
No, believe me, I'm much better than that.
The libertarian argument is going to be prohibition. It's not going to make it any more secure, which is actually kind of true because, again, if you expel people, then you just create an incentive to evade border patrol, which means that you can't come into the country and claim asylum, which means you can't be screened for a criminal background.
guys. Wow.
Okay, so you heard soon you'll know who I am. Now, I think one of the big questions for you guys, you addressed this a little bit at the beginning, is that, listen, we, the native-born Americans have higher crime rates, et cetera. Is it feasible to have relatively open borders and prevent situations like this from occurring? And if it is, what should Joe Biden do right now, today, tomorrow? Chase.
I would argue that if you had ease of legal immigration, you could actually put our eye on the ball for those who are coming here to do harm, to actually, like I said, traffic people for labor or sexual exploitation, people who are going to be basically frauding people by putting fentanyl into things that look like they're not fentanyl and causing overdoses. Yeah, those are where we need to be putting our eye on the ball with law enforcement. Those are actually seeking to do real harm in our communities. And when we allow for the mass majority of immigrants who just want to come here and work and live and not create crime and not be violent, we can actually focus on the crime that happens on our southern border. We can better put our eye on the ball where it needs to be, as opposed to not being able to see the forest from the trees.
Response?
I'm not sure. So which agency would do that?
That would be a Border Patrol. Yeah, not ICE, but yeah. Also, you're not going to get me to say that Border Patrol is a wonderfully run organization or that there's not major problems with it.
What's wrong with that?
Huh?
What's wrong with that?
So
it's about every law enforcement agency in this country has major problems with it. For one, every law enforcement in this country doesn't allow for real civil adjudication when they've done wrong to qualified immunity. Law enforcement, by and large, ICE themselves are a badly run organization. They use billions of dollars.
Because they don't deport enough illegals.
Huh?
Because they don't deport enough illegals.
They don't do. Well, here's the thing: you can't deport all of them. You just can't.
You 100% can.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
A huge
And
economic
Angola
cost.
deported all the illegal Congolese.
Not without
in
a
their
huge
country.
economic cost, a huge cost to our privacy and security, and a huge cost to our economy. Like those
Yes,
are.
you can. That is a lie.
Okay, so Ryan,
They
go ahead.
literally-
Can. It would
there
just
are
make the Patriot Act
1.7
look like
This is the question.
a
This is-
wristband
Right,
for a
so
carnival, but
Ryan,
fine.
how do you do
Patriot
it
Act doesn't
without
apply to
making
them.
the Patriot Act look like a
so
ride at a
first you do
carnival?
expedited removal. That's the first thing, which neither President Trump nor President Biden did. Just expedited removal.
Detention.
Biden, I'm pretty sure, has done expedited removal for a lot of people. I'm pretty sure Biden and Trump did expedited removal for a lot of people. It wasn't just Biden or anything.
Expedited removal from the border, first of all, from the outside.
But
That's-
detention as you're processing for removal.
Well, they got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, they got deported.
Well, yeah, that was the kids in cages.
Expedite. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
That was part of it, but that was also yes and no. Expedited removal currently happens all the time, but it's not expanded. You expand expedited removal. There's 1.7 million illegal aliens from Mexico and Central America alone, not including Europe, Africa, Asia, all the rest of places, that have had their adjudication process and are still in this country. 1.7 million, almost 10% of that 20 million number, have had the whole process you're talking about, and they stayed. And only ICE and a president who could sit there and do expedited removal and actually catch up to them will deport them. But over the border, over the week, there was 8 ISIS members from Tajikistan who came across the border, had been here for, I think, a month, 6 weeks, something like that, and perfectly let them in. They lied to the border agents, and they completely, and then afterwards they said, this is a big flag in our system, and they managed to find them in under a week. They managed to find these people who lived in different cities in under a week. I'm pretty sure that we could sit there and do that. I'm pretty sure that we could sit there and find
13
illegals.
million
First of all,
people.
You cut the welfare dependency off. You sit there and stop giving them Medicaid. You sit there and make it. You do what Jamboree did in Arizona and SB 1070. You also allow local law enforcement to sit there and try to ICE.
Explain SB 1070.
Yeah, and also with the
It was struck
context
down
that the
by
Supreme
Supreme
Court
Court.
It was
struck
not
it
actually.
down.
Only one portion of it was, but the portion that was the papers, please, was allowed by the Supreme Court.
Go on.
But SB 1070, the Supreme Court has ruled that states cannot on their own deport illegal aliens, but they have never said that state and local police cannot help ICE sit there and find them, and then ICE deports them. You just sit there and weaponize it across all 50 states. That's one thing. Second thing is you manage to cut the welfare system. You go through expedited removal to find the 1.7 million who've already been through this wonderful system that everyone says is going to find the deterrents, and you deport them immediately. Then, through how you stop the process ultimately after expedited removal is you look at increasing the fear threshold for asylum seekers. Asylum is not actually as high as people play as the media is saying 80% are asylum seekers. Most are not. They're just regular illegals. You increase the fear threshold and you do remain in Mexico and you build a wall, a real wall like the one Israel has. Not to offend you, Ryan. The real one that Ryan works. Yeah, the one that works.
Like the one Israel has. Dude wants to recreate the fucking Gaza border wall on our southern border. Again, that wouldn't actually do anything because of the way the law is written, because of the UN law that the US has signed and ratified, and because of our own domestic law. You would have to actually change the domestic law. It's just such a dumbass fucking talking point. Whatever.
All right.
Also, this.
Let's say
Fly
I'm the
to my
government
room now.
and I
Sick.
have obtained $1 trillion more to do something with. You guys think it would be best spent rounding up every illegal in the country? I actually think I would put those resources. I think we have a lot.
But you'll get plenty of time to
Ryan rambles in his head.
But you'll get time to respond.
He's just going to lie
You'll get
and
time to respond.
mischaracterize what Ryan just
My
said.
understanding is that it would cost about $1 trillion
Who told
to
you that?
deport.
Well, are you going to respond to
That is the
Ryan, or are you
commonly
just going to keep
cited-
making up things?
How much is the number by
I will sit here
Cato?
quietly.
How much do you think it costs to get those 6 to Tajiks?
Less than $1 trillion.
Okay, how much?
So
Probably,
Because we can pull a calculator out.
it was
Yeah.
probably about a week and a half worth of, I don't know, 25 ICE agents to find 6 unique people.
My point was going to be
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
this vast effort to arrest, detain, and deport 20 million people, if we had the resources and the money to do it, I would rather spend it on arresting the violent criminals in the society, regardless of whether they are illegal immigrants or not. We have a massive crime clearance problem in this city, in cities all around the country, of police not being able to arrest enough people, of crime labs being backlogged, of people not being prosecuted.
Robbie, you would oppose that? You would oppose that in a minute.
I'm saying I don't.
Let me point something.
Let's do it.
You said you can do both.
Yes.
Resources are not unlimited.
Oh, really?
Donald Trump wanted to hire how many?
Resources are limited.
So
Donald
Trump
arguing with a Democrat. Nobody here agrees that the welfare state is good.
Well, you just been saying it's unlimited all night long.
That's a drain on resources. We all recognize that. But so is spending $1 trillion, whether you do it for rounding people up and deporting them or anything else.
$1 trillion never save a lot of money.
Donald Trump tried to hire how many Border Patrol agents? 5,000, 10,000.
You're talking about the Senate bill?
Yeah, Donald Trump said, I'm going to surge resources to the border.
Oh, right.
Guess what? They couldn't find the workers to do it. So now police forces are
It's another big issue. They can't find people for Border Patrol or the immigration court system.
facing labor shortages everywhere. And now you're saying that not only can you round up every single
defund the police?
Happy to answer your question. Happy to answer your question.
And you're also going to then go after everybody with a warrant?
That's perfectly.
But you can't even hire Border Patrol agents.
Not someone in
So
front of my
this is part of
regardless of whether they were an illegal immigrant or not. That's what I want.
Jack's gonna go.
So I know Chase has been, been pretty anti-war, right? Generally anti-war guy, and we'll just leave it at that without detail. So, when we're pulling back our special forces, when we're pulling back those guys, when we're reducing those ranks, if in any
Bring people home from Israel. I don't think there are U.S. troops in Israel right now, and deploy them on the southern border.
Way, and if they are willing,
and recreate this was the guy, or maybe it was this one, who said that we should have a real wall like the one Israel has on our southern border.
To be detailed out to deal with any of these problems, the transnational cartels, as we're talking about, as Robbie's talking about, in terms of the most violent ones here, as you said.
American troops are going to do the policing in our country now? Awesome.
Of course, against transnational threats. Who should deal with that? What do you think other countries use, Ryan?
Unleash the military, the military.
What do you think what other countries? You just said ISIS-K. Who? Is ISIS-K not a transnational threat?
It's better for us to ignore the cartel as hundreds of thousands of Americans die from fentanyl overdoses, but we shouldn't deal with it. That should be. We should always be on defense. Once they're in the communities, then take care of them.
So abolish ICE. No, that's a serious question for all of you.
ICE sucks. ICE is a toxic, disgusting.
I am fine with border enforcement. I am fine with having borders. If experts say we need to spend more resources on this aspect, I don't have any ideological stake in that. But I don't want to spend resources rounding up people who are not committing crimes or danger and just participating in the economic activity of the country. We can have still border security. In fact, I think we can make border security more efficient and easier if we didn't have people streaming across the border because there's no other way to get in the country.
They've taken $1 million a year. What are you talking about? We've taken more than any country in the world. There is not a fence around the oceans. We've taken so many people.
There's not a fence around the true. I mean, we also have a higher population than most countries, right? So as a percentage of population, again, we're probably not. Probably we're about the same as we were in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and again, if you look at the data, it doesn't seem like immigration has really increased that much, even compared to the early 2000s. Because in the early 2000s, our border security was a lot worse, so there were a lot of people getting over the border undetected. If you account for those people, if you add the number of people we know across the border in 2000, along with the estimates of the people who got away undetected, we are still lower. We still have a lower number of illegal immigrants crossing now than we did back then.
It's not like they can't come in another way. That's a lie, Robbie. You're saying a lie repeatedly. It doesn't make it true. You need to know that.
It's
also, the whole thing, it is not extremely.
Yes,
so many come. Only because they all want to come. That's the only reason it's competitive. That's why you want the cream, the best, not the poorest in the world.
0.3%.
Yes, 0.003%. That would be wonderful. You get only the wealthiest, the best.
So should we have any asylum open? You just said not the poorest in the world. Often asylum seekers would be the poorest in the world. Legitimate asylum seekers.
Yes, there's probably like 5 in the world, and they all live in South Africa. There's not many real.
Why is it that asylum seekers don't come to the first safe country?
Yes, they don't.
No, I don't disagree.
They don't. They country shop.
Many of our asylum seekers are not from.
So remain in Mexico. Would both of you support remain in Mexico?
I support whatever can facilitate easier immigration. If that means someone has to stay in Mexico while their asylum is adjudicated, I personally think far too many people claim asylum. I think if we had far less people claiming asylum, we wouldn't have to have that. We would have an easier path to be able to move people through asylum courts here in the United States. But I'm for whatever eases immigration. I don't necessarily think remaining in Mexico makes it easier to process an asylum claim. But if someone wants to claim asylum before they get here, they should be able to do that.
I don't think it makes any sense to be in the country without the ability to legally work. That's
what work. Asylum seekers work. What are you talking about? They have to wait 90 days. They get a work permit. What are you talking about? They do work.
They fear deportation.
They do not fear. They all work. They come from Venezuela. They go to New York. They become drivers, or not drivers, but like motorcycle drivers for food delivery.
I mean,
for
there are
DoorDash.
thousands of deportations a year.
Yes, there are, but that's not asylum seekers unless they commit a crime or afterwards.
Yeah,
but
true.
they do work.
Well, it depends. By the way, Biden. They haven't talked about Biden versus Trump that much in this debate. It's just border and immigration in general. Biden has supported, I think, 51% of immigrants versus Trump 49%. So he's actually deported a greater percentage of immigrants crossing the border than Trump did. Now the raw numbers are greater under Biden, obviously, but that's just because there's been a surge in asylum seekers, right? So
It's not like they don't work. This is not. Once again, Robbie, this is just not true.
Wait, you just said they come here and get welfare.
Most of them do. Yes, you get cash
But they're not
assistance.
working.
No, of course they work in
Oh,
the
they
cash
work and
assistance.
get welfare.
In New York City, you are qualified. In New York City, where home of immigrant, asylum, all the rest of it, you absolutely qualify for welfare. As an illegal immigrant, as a refugee, you get free housing. How much does a house cost for a month? Rob, wouldn't you love a free hotel in New York for a month, do whatever you want with, and you get cash assistance benefits and free food?
These are all arguments to end the welfare state.
Okay.
That's fine.
How do you, as the libertarian president, end the welfare?
I wish I wish they went into the data more on this, but again, it doesn't seem like immigrants really use that much more welfare than native-born populations, and in some cases they even use less. I would have to look into the exact study he quoted earlier on the Medicare stuff, but like immigrants usually use less Medicare than the native-born population. I think we saw that earlier. Let me bring up my fucking shit. 55%. Oh, it's not the percentage. Overall, immigrants consume 55% less healthcare dollars per capita than natives. Yeah.
First day of New York City.
Yeah, well, you don't do that as a libertarian candidate for president. You do that as running city council for mayor in New York.
No.
And also you got to compare them to the native-born population. Again, children go through the socialist education system, as they said. Native-born children, have to be supported with government spending until they're 18 and can work, or some people work at 16 or whatever. But they get financial aid for college too. Versus immigrants have already had all that spending paid for by another country, and they come here and they're ready to work now. They're ready to contribute to the economy now.
So the only way you do it for illegal immigrants is you stop illegal immigrants. That's the way you do it. You can't sit there and govern.
I don't want to just stop the welfare state just for immigrants. I
I get it. I
state.
agree with you. I agree with you. But if you can't do it as president for like all these municipalities that have a huge welfare state for basically everyone besides the ones who pay taxes, then you can't do it. Then
Well, he's a libertarian. Obviously, he doesn't want to tell the states what to do. Really,
what are you going to do as president? You're going to have a welfare state. That's the state of it. You're declaring defeat of your own argument. The only thing you could stop is the illegal immigrants. So stop them.
No, you have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. You have to be able to allow the
So I
market
asked
to
you
work
how.
direct. You have to allow for a free market direct while you also advocate for an end to the welfare state.
How?
Because I'm
How?
doing
I'm
that right
asking
now as a
how.
candidate. There are people all over the country who advocate for more open immigration who
Chase,
also
I'm
oppose
asking
welfare.
you, how will you stop the welfare
Yeah,
state?
you do that through legislation, through Congress, through actually ending these programs, through
Okay.
creating a
That's a
sundown
little-
for Social
can't wait
Security.
for 3
We're getting
minutes
a
to
little
tell
on a
you.
tangent here.
Yeah, let me-
But
And
the
by the way,
thing is
most
that
Americans
a
do
lot of
support
your
the
arguments
welfare
against
state.
immigration is arguments against the welfare state. It
No,
doesn't
I've got
exist.
tons of
Ending
arguments.
the welfare state is very
just
difficult. So is deporting 20 million people and
No, it's
closing
not.
the southern border. Yes, it is difficult.
because
Throwing
political
more government money does not make anything better in this country.
Oh,
Well, let's
really?
spend more money
Really?
on it.
Chile is
Let's
a
spend
much
more
smaller
money on
country.
it.
Entire industrial Southwest that the U.S. government built. The U.S. government built the
Spend more
Southwest.
money,
that didn't do
government money would
anything.
fix the
There's
problem.
no
We would have the
industry
highest
anywhere.
math and reading
Really,
scores
there's
in
no
decades.
NASA program.
Instead,
NASA
we have
never did anything.
zero
The creation of the
withdrawal.
internet that never did
Okay,
anything.
Here's
Really.
the deal. Adding a
That was
cost,
all
whether
we
it's whether
Yes,
it's
the internet was
billions
because
or
of the
trillion-
government. That is actually true, Robbie.
Yeah, but when you add costs to our
Ryan, you
whether
want
it's
to jump in on
trillion-
that?
Okay, let me ask you guys something else. You guys are both Trump supporters, right? In general, is that fair to say? We'll see. Anyway.
Ryan didn't support Trump in the primary. I did, so...
I supported him in 16. When he said
Okay.
Mexicans are rapists, I was like, he's my guy.
Oh, great. Okay,
ahead,
interesting. All right, so
Cool.
there was just a coup.
Dude, I hope that's trolling. I was doing that's trolling, but it's hard to know because this guy also doesn't seem to understand shit about immigration in general. So
Bolivia. It's a military coup attempt. We'll find out whether or not there was some U.S. support for that or
Oh, my
not
God.
in the coming hours and days. During the Trump administration, I'm not singling him out because Biden's been awful on this, Obama's been awful on this, but during the Trump administration, there was another coup in Bolivia. There was an attempted coup in Venezuela. Cuba was thrown on the state sponsor of terror list. We backed a narco government in Honduras that was a result of a coup during Hillary Clinton's time. We helped elect this guy in Ecuador that took the country from the safest country in South America to the most dangerous and linked it up with narcos. As a result of all of this, you're seeing massive outflows of people to our southern border.
Right.
Where does this play into your guys' thinking about immigration. Should we stop doing that?
I think we shouldn't. We shouldn't invade the world, and we shouldn't invite the world.
You're not going to find a lot of deep
I'm not for overthrowing governments. But also, I mean, in a number of countries, you could. I mean, El Salvador is super safe right now. Super safe. People cross through it all the time. They don't declare asylum there. They wait till they get to the United States. There are multiple safe countries that they go through. Chile is a relatively safe country.
Of the welfare state.
Because they don't have welfare like we do, and they don't respect. They don't have the migrants out there like we do, and they know that Joe Biden opened the doors. I'm totally opposed to it. I think that it does feed into a lot of problems and stability and creating.
Deported again, higher percentage of immigrants than Trump did, by the way.
I know you're going to hate this, but creating like a Monroe Doctrine of the Western Hemisphere, where we say we're going to create governance to sit there and support good leaders. And unfortunately, we have leaders like Hillary Clinton who say, you know what, let's overthrow Gaddafi, which led to a migration crisis in Europe. Yes, we're not sending our own best to the White House.
You're not going to get a lot of disagreement on these points from this side of the table. What I
like
about
this
is
one of the specific things when Marco Rubio's name came up as vice president that I loudly came out against. That his involvement in the Juan Guaido, whatever you want to call it, was something that's just that's just a stain you're never going to be able to get away.
Right.
And who knows when the next one that he's going to come up with is. And people have told me, oh, Jack, Rubio he's changed his colors on that, and he's seen the light, and I just don't buy it.
But that's also why we should not take in the failed warlords of the third world, which
even
is what
if
we
we
do now.
back them and create them.
We didn't back Ilhan Omar's family, and we still took them in.
But he's talking about.
We quite literally did.
We backed Ilhan Omar's warlord family.
Explain it.
Yeah, her father was part of
warlord.
the Somali faction that we were supporting.
But weren't we supporting multiple factions in Somalia?
Okay, why are we? Why are you talking? I don't care about this right now.
Failed.
No, I mean
we usually support both sides of every war.
We support both sides.
We support every war.
Look
up her national.
Okay, but we should. But that is our currency. We literally supported Al Qaeda in Syria, but not in Afghanistan. But we've done this a million times over. No, we shouldn't be propping up and funding these wars and regime wars. But we shouldn't be taking in the failed warlords that we've overthrown from both sides.
I think a lot of people who come here are people who are escaping the warlords from those areas of the world, who don't want to live under their autocracy, their violence, and they're coming here because they see a better situation for them and their family.
And they vote for Democrats.
They will vote for whoever they vote for. They vote for whoever they vote for Democrats.
To Robbie's point, it does seem a little pitiful to say you don't like them because they don't vote for you, rather than to Robbie's point, just go out and make a case.
No, I know.
They're trending towards Trump. Trump is out there.
What is happening?
They hate wokeness. I'm with the people who hate wokeness.
That is not what happened. There's two reasons that Trump is winning over more Hispanics than before. One is BLM. This is the reason Nixon actually performed the best among Republicans that performed the best among Hispanics was Nixon, because Nixon told Hispanic voters, "I will save you from black criminals" after the 1968 riots.
Sure.
And that appealed to them.
That's the point I was making about who's committing all the crimes.
Exactly. I mean, it is. It's 53 or 56% of murders for a 13% population.
Okay, so great. So Republicans should appeal to Hispanics more by being anti-BLM. Phenomenal. Okay. Wait, are you still going to? It's just such a dumb point. Oh, I don't want them coming in because they
56%.
Because they vote Democrat. But even though they're leaning Republican now, they're leaning Republican because Republicans are appealing to them.
We actually don't even know the number now because they don't report.
Right. So, but. Yes, so the two things happening. One, BLM and crime rates, and Democrats lost their minds with having to protect black criminals. The second thing that happened was that as Mexicans, Cubans, and Puerto Ricans, the three longest ancestral Hispanic communities within this country, have now been in here 80, 90 years, conservative Hispanics are now voting like conservative white people, which they never did before. Conservative Hispanics usually voted for Democrats. Now they are voting for Republicans. That is the huge spike in Trump numbers. They don't care about amnesty. Trump is not talking about amnesties. They didn't care when John McCain was offering amnesties. They certainly didn't care when Bush tried to do it afterwards. Ronald Reagan did the amnesty in 86. He got less support in 84 among Hispanics than he got in 80. George H.W. Bush got less support in 88. H.W. did another amnesty in 90. He got less support in 92. It's literally never happened. You could be as amnesty, immigration friendly, and they do not care. All that's changing now is opinions on crime.
Here's a super contemporary example, Haiti. So plenty of reporting, New York Post, Todd Bensman wrote this story here. He's fantastic on some of this reporting, what happened in Haiti. We actually talked to the former U.S. Special Envoy on Breaking Points, Daniel Foote, who said that Biden administration struck a deal with the replacement for the slain Haitian president after he was assassinated, that we would back him if he agreed to continue accepting migrants to Port-au-Prince that were being deported in that Haitian flood. Everyone remembers those images from the Del Rio sector from that time period. So do we, if we're backing a brutal administration, have any responsibility then? We could go down the line to the other coups that we all are not in support of, bold stance, anti-coup. But do we have any, if we all agree that that stuff is wrong, do we have any responsibility to help people who are fleeing violence that is being facilitated by this new regime that the U.S. backed?
No, what we should
be doing. Remain in Mexico.
What's
wrong with remaining in Mexico? But when it comes to responsibility and duty, we have a responsibility and duty to the people who live in this country now currently. We don't have any responsibility and duty to people around the world. Yes, there are horrible things that the U.S. government has done, and it would be great. It would be wonderful to mitigate those things, but not at the detriment of the people who currently live here. It's what we should import all of Haiti just because.
And now we're just back to are immigrants good or bad when all the evidence shows they're good, and these people are just like, well, I think they're bad because they take welfare
Thing that the
guys
CIA
to
did
welfare
over there.
spending.
It's ridiculous. It would be insane, and you know that the same level of gang violence would be imported to the United States because there'd be no actual vetting, and no matter how many people say, "Oh, we're going to vet, we're going to vet, we're going to vet," it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
And
there are certain situations like ICK, which, for a variety of reasons, the IC has a certain targeting for, but things like that, like gang violence, no, of course not. We'd be importing that into our cities. We're already seeing that in Minnesota. We're already seeing that in places across the country. And so there's no question that you have to always put the interest of the people who live here currently first.
Yeah, but if you look at statistics, if you say that both legal and illegal immigrants do commit a lower rate of crime than native-born people, which they do, they do. In many studies, you can find it over and over again.
I can cite studies
But you're talking about a duty. You're talking about a responsibility.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is when you increase the number of population with people who commit less crime, you're actually lowering the overall crime
So,
rate.
Chase, why don't you then just make Haiti a state? Make it 51st
you're
state. They're going to drop the crime
Who based Haiti 51st state?
rate because the minute that they're there, and they would love to be part of the country. Oh, they would absolutely love it. That'd be perfect. So apparently their crime will
You
drop.
guys should
if you
stand up
just
for the
make them a state.
libertarian paradise that is Haiti. Right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, actually,
You got
yeah.
your no government.
No government.
Yeah, go to Libya. Libya
Somalia.
loves
Body
libertarianism.
you
They don't
guys.
have government at all.
Look, I
Now we're
actually
turning into a libertarian anarchist debate.
the
Awesome,
U.S.
dude.
government's primary responsibility is not to people elsewhere in the world, but to the citizens of the country. I do agree with that. But if you think of the people who live in this country that the U.S. government does have a duty for, want to hire immigrants, want to rent their
Of course they
apartments
do,
to
because it's
immigrants. They
cheaper.
want it. Right. So the responsibility of the U.S. government is to those people who want to work with immigrants, who want immigrants to be their neighbors, who want to engage in commerce with the immigrants. And the position you're taking is that the U.S. government should come in and say a voluntary interaction between people should be morally prohibited by us, the government.
is.
I'm saying
always is.
no.
And
I'm
that's
saying that
what I'm
it's
saying is
harmful
it's
and that
not
it's not.
that.
When I say American people, you hear business owners. What
Oh
about
my
all
God.
the other people who are here?
yeah, they work for businesses. They work for businesses, many of whom are created by immigrants. They work alongside immigrants in the workforce.
And do they
today.
want mass immigration?
I think many people are just happy to live in a nation that has been built by immigration. that has
I'm
tons of
rejecting
immigrants.
your right as the U.S. government.
Again, they're gonna mention it again, like the poll. Oh, people want to stop mass immigration, but like they're not here to discuss what the majority of Americans want. You should be discussing your
cannot
points on it.
engage in a transaction that I don't approve.
Yeah, if one person doesn't want,
That's literally the
What if
principle.
if one person doesn't want to
61%
enter into a
reduce legal
transaction
immigration?
and another person does, that's the marketplace in action. People can decide whether they want to hire immigrants or not, whether they want to work with immigrants or not, whether they want to work for a business that's created by an immigrant or not. But the truth is that when people come here and they are able to exercise their economic output, they do better here than they would at home, and they can create businesses here in the United States.
Here's a clarifying question maybe for them. This is because I'm actually really curious. I think this is something that's very hard to deal with. If we create more lenient immigration laws, because one thing we've seen is as leniency has increased over the course of the Biden administration, there has been a massive surge, and the leniency has basically been a handout to cartels, who have said we are now trafficking basically every single person. You go to the border, you talk to people, everyone has paid. That is a direct quote from somebody that I talked to at a refugee organization in Matamoros. Everyone has paid. So it's a subsidy to cartels in that sense, more lenient immigration laws. Is there a way? Is it possible, and I'll start with you, Chase, is it possible
blue
to
again.
have more lenient pathways to immigrate to the United States without, in the current situation, giving away all kinds of opportunities for cartels to traffic people, get them up to the border where they can then
It's going to be the anti-prohibition thing again, which I mean he's right on. If there was a better pathway to legal immigration, well, people probably wouldn't be paying cartels to enter the U.S. illegally or to claim asylum, right? They would just apply for legal immigration.
advantage of those legal pathways from Colombia or Venezuela or wherever else.
Okay, so first off, if we had an eased immigration, we had more legal immigration, you wouldn't have people needing to sneak people across the border, coyotes. You wouldn't have the need for that because people could come through a port of entry and declare who they were. You would actually remove profit motive for doing that. Now,
But to
is
get
there
up
profit
through the
motive?
other countries.
Now that is, and that can be a service that anybody provides to anybody. You know, if I want to travel to the southern tip of Mexico, I can hire a driver or hire people to travel me down there. That's just a service that people are paying for. The illegality is when then you use people to cross through the border illegally. That is something that, you're right, happens a lot. That is actually indicative of the fact that the border is not completely open. The fact is yes, it's porous, people can get through, but there's not an ease of process for people to come here.
So does it have to be completely open?
Wait, Chase, I have a question. So you just said that you've been saying this whole time, as long as a company wants to sponsor a worker, then they should come here.
No, as long as a worker wants to come to work. You don't need a sponsorship program. That's a whole centrally
Okay.
planned
Let's say someone does.
apparatus.
Let's just say someone does want to come to work. Let's say they want nefarious things. They will turn to an illegal method to get across the border anyway.
But
that's like saying the mafia ended when alcohol became legal. That's not true. That's like not true at all. They just moved to a different illegal means. They'll just traffic in other illegal think.
So, but
Or
Chase,
more
is
worse
that
people.
an argument in support of a completely open border? That's the phrase that you just used. Do we need to have a completely open border in order to prevent human trafficking?
What I think you need to have is you need to have an open port of entry where people who are peaceful can come through it and get to work.
Does
Where the
that create
marketplace-
incentives for more and more people
I mean, let's
to
put this
flood
on
the
its head,
border?
though. Let's put even more money into border security and enforce it even more vigorously. You could make the argument that that's going to make the cartels even more powerful because their profit incentive to help get people through increases, as it does under prohibition.
Yeah,
true. That's a good point.
It's making it harder. It's exactly what they want.
Before prohibition, less people drank alcohol, and what we have said, what Jack has said, what I have said is that we should be using our military to squash the cartel, which apparently is like a heinous idea. But we should
You guys want
protect
to bomb the
Americans.
cartels?
Sure.
100%.
So you would
What do
bomb
you say
south
to
of the
that?
border, you'd bomb in Mexico.
100%. If they're a cartel hub making fentanyl, producing fentanyl from China, below the smithereens.
Without Mexico's consent, you would just bomb. And
Mexico is a failed cartel state.
So you're
When
going
are
to
they
coup?
Mexico, true. Oh no! Now we're getting to the. I watched a clip of this on Twitter. It's actually the clip I watched. Now we're getting to the. Should we go to war with Mexico? I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to striking some of the cartel things if we had Mexico's permission, but now they're debating over whether we should do it even without Mexico's permission, which seems to me unhinged.
So what?
Are you going to coup AMLO?
No,
He's already.
I know, but I'm saying hypothetically. Like,
No.
we just said no
I'm
coups.
reluctant to
Are
start
you
a
guys?
war.
I'm just curious.
I am
Are you guys
one
in
of our
a?
largest trading partners? That
Is this
would
a
be
normal-
huge wrong.
We're
This
not,
is normal
bombing
view?
we're not bombing Mexico City. Most of the drugs come from literally one region of Mexico, and they come from certain places. It's not like we don't know where these
If
people
I lean
are.
back, it's
We
turned
managed to get
political.
freaking Osama. We managed to sit there and get.
Yes, well, displacing
Few minutes ago, Osama.
We don't have to do all that. It's not an
We're not
invading
talking
country.
about the global war on terror. We're talking about those specific types of operations.
We
to
literally
go after
execute
the
terrorists
cartels.
all the time.
Yeah, you don't exercise military action in another sovereign nation without their permission. That is an invasion. That is war.
How many
And I don't want to go to war with Mexico.
How many Americans have to
Mexico's
die
not
from
going to
Mexican
declare
drug cartel
war
before
on
it is a
America
war?
if we take
So,
out the cartels.
Jack,
How many Americans
ridiculous.
have to die before it actually is a war? Because it is a war, only one side's fighting.
First off, wars should be congressionally declared. I don't think you'll ever get both houses of Congress.
They already
agreeing
gave
to
Congress.
invade
They already gave the
Mexico.
presidency the
Let's get
discretion to do
Jack to
that.
flesh
So,
out his
done deal.
position on bombing the cartels, because this is a big issue for you, Jack, and it's one that you've given a lot of thought to. Why is it a just war for us, the United States, to start bombing cartels?
Well, first of all, we're not the ones starting the war. The war's already begun. Ryan just mentioned this. We can look at fentanyl deaths. You can look at child trafficking deaths. You can look at some of the ones that I mentioned earlier. The war's here. The war's already on our shores. And by the way, when you talk about the border,
It was just solid by bombing them instead of just having a better pathway to legal immigration. What a
Border as it
phenomenal
currently
argument.
exists.
Well, let's use the military to deport the 13 million migrants here, which would be expensive and inflationary, and two, we should go to war with Mexican cartels, which would be expensive, wouldn't really be inflationary. And it probably wouldn't even. I can't even imagine that would be. I don't think that would be a stabilizing force. I don't think like it's just a meme of like, oh well, I mean, you get rid of the cartels, okay? Cartel 2 is just gonna pop up, right? I don't think there's a very easy way to get rid of the cartels without like some actual overarching change in policy, which would be in this case changing our current law, changing the current asylum laws, probably withdrawing from that the UN charter we signed. Not the UN Charter, the UN Treaty we signed, the 1967 Convention on the Rights of Refugees, and opening a better pathway to legal immigration so people can come here legally and they can be screened for a criminal background and they don't have to be snuck over the border by cartels. Yeah.
The dotted line on the graph. When you talk to a border patrol, when you talk to Homeland Security guys, people I serve with in the military, that they'll tell you that that's the official border, but the real border is far north of that because of the cartel-controlled areas that are already in our country. By the way, so you're talking about specific. And by the way, when I'm talking about bombing, I'm talking about like the Ukrainian-level cruise missile type attacks that we're seeing in Ukraine war. What I'm talking about are targeted operations against cartel leaders, targeted operations against cartel cells, targeted operations against you name it in terms of their hubs of drug facilitation facilities, these types of things. You can do that very, very easy. In fact, by the way, we have a highly trained military to do so.
You can do that while adding more and more to the debt and deficit, and more, just like $1 trillion being.
Just let the cartels keep going. Just let them keep
No,
going.
but we can just do this by adding more and more and more, and yeah, we'll just add more to the deficit. We'll add more to the deficit. We'll add $1 trillion to the
You
deficit.
hate the drug war. Guess what?
I
It's a
said
lot
earlier,
cheaper when
I
you
said
stop it
earlier
there than when you
that I
stop
would
it here.
unplug, by the way.
But
all
you
those
said
other
you
wars.
say probably way more money
you
by
decriminalize drugs in this country, removing
It worked really great in Oregon. They had to
Now we're
decriminalize
going
them almost
to
immediately.
the prohibition stuff. Yeah.
People are gonna still do drugs.
Presumably
No,
your
they're
backyard.
not.
Oh, we're gonna
People
stop
did
them
not
from
drink.
where?
People did
From
not
where?
drink that much.
Where are they gonna
People
get them
drank
from?
much more often after prohibition than before it.
So you're worried about
I don't even know if that's true. There were big issues with people continuing to drink during prohibition, right? It may have been slightly less, but we literally started poisoning the alcohol, right? So, and there were a lot of deaths from that, from poisoning the alcohol.
Now
And
we've
it
gone
created
less.
huge
So let me get this straight.
Yes,
We've gone
but
from the
it's not a
interests
higher
of the
price,
business
and it created
owners
an entire
to the
criminal
interests of the illegals. So now we're on the interest of the druggies. I'm still waiting to hear anyone talk about the interest of the American people.
Yeah, the interest of the American people is.
It's just such a dumb. It's here, you know. Since this guy is so dumb again. Okay. So we have here. Okay, where oopsie. Well, here we go. Okay, then where we are now. This is good A, good B. There's all the things we can produce. With net zero immigration, we would go down. With more immigration, we would go up. This is clearly preferable. Going up is clearly preferable to going down or even staying the same. That does help American businesses. Okay, obviously helps American businesses. You know who also it helps? Every American person. It helps the entire American economy. There are, again, trade-offs that we can talk of, or that we can speak about, like the fact that immigrants may, to some extent, depress wages, but those are trade-offs. It's overwhelmingly a positive trade-off, and they have not actually described at all why it's a negative trade-off. They just said it depresses wages without addressing the other things that immigration does.
It's a system that works, that isn't broken. And when you end the war on drugs, you actually have a situation that has a better situation for those who are using, better situations for communities.
Oh, and also, again, it barely depresses wages. It depresses wages for like high school dropouts by 2%. That's clearly a trade-off worth making.
Without the cartel violence, you have safer use. Yes, that is a better thing for the American people. So is having
safer use. Like
you know what's really good for the American people? No hollowed out towns in Appalachia because of the fentanyl.
Oh my God.
Yes, and fentanyl is something we have to address as a medical
You want to
crisis.
legalize everything.
Well, Robbie,
You just said
I want
anyone
to
with
use
drugs.
You want to legalize it.
Yeah,
Robbie,
you decriminalize all
Robbie,
drugs because
I can't even understand your position because you keep jumping from
All
one
right,
to
so
the other.
jumping from top
I have
to top.
I have one
Fair.
question because
talk-
Ryan wrote a
cartels,
whole book
fentanyl.
on Ryan
Cartels
Graham
and
wrote a whole
fentanyl.
book on drugs, so he probably has a lot of thoughts on this. I have one question for Robbie because you just sort of laughed at Ryan Gerdusky's point that there are people there are hollowed out towns in Appalachia because of fentanyl addictions,
Well, because
opioid
of fentanyl
addictions.
addiction, yeah,
but you laughed and said because of immigrants. And I think what Ryan would say, and I'll let Ryan respond after you respond to this, Robbie, is that listen, the relatively open border, that as they would define it, has allowed a lot of people who come in, claim asylum, they have been trafficked, so now they owe debts to their traffickers, to then they're on the line, they actually are bringing fentanyl through our borders.
Yeah. Look, I honestly don't take a strong position on this cartel issue. It seems unwise to me to start a war with Mexico and start bombing them. But like, I'm more moderate on this issue than like the framing of this debate makes it seem. I just want to bring more people into the country legally to do work. They're already doing it and make it easier to have people come in. The cartels are obviously monstrous and evil organizations. Like, I'm open to an argument that that's the right way to deal with them. I'm very skeptical that this would make us better. This war with Mexico, I absolutely think would have to be declared by Congress. I don't think there's any appetite to do that. I think the best way to defang the cartels is to have other pathways to immigration to get in the country that don't involve them.
Base.
I think greater enforcement would be
Now,
just
I
as
hate
good as
agreeing
them
with
as it
libertarians,
was
but
for the
most of their
mafia under
points here are
Prohibition.
correct.
But you have
Throughout
tons of
this
disagreement
entire
about what the
No,
relative
mafia
alcohol
did- the mafia
consumption was
didn't-
during
the mafia didn't
points of
end
Prohibition.
after
Mafia kept going
Prohibition.
until
The
the
mafia became.
1980s.
My family was in the mafia at the time. They didn't stop. They were. That didn't stop when alcohol became illegal. They did other things. They will do other things. There will always be a criminal. There will always be a criminal underbelly in this country, no matter what you legalize, what you don't legalize.
But not in people.
I'm so he's saying like they'll do other things, like okay, but isn't our concern is over like the fentanyl getting into the U.S. right now or whatever? If they're doing other things, that's probably not going to hurt the U.S. as much, right? I would assume the substitute for what they're doing now is not going to hurt people in the U.S. as much as the fentanyl crisis is. I would guess. And I don't know what exactly the other things would be, but I doubt it would be as destructive as the fentanyl crisis.
Yeah.
At least to the U.S. population. Maybe they'll just export the fentanyl crisis to a different country, but
They'll be organized.
they're the America First people, so.
Right.
No, yes, they will be, because there'll be slavery. Because people bring. There's an Atlantic article from maybe 8 years ago, a Filipino immigrant who was a child, came here, grew up, and realized he had a slave in his house. He said his parents brought over slaves, and he didn't realize that he was an adult. He goes, wow, they don't have a bed. I'm just realizing this right now. Things like that happen all the time. Indentured servitude happens constantly. There was a raid in upstate New York, 100 children were working on a farm. Indentured servitude. There'll be sex traffickers. They'll be
Doesn't the the way people have to illegally immigrate kind of incentivize? Doesn't it kind of make it easier? Doesn't it kind of incentivize this? Don't you think that opening up a better pathway to legal immigration would kind of disincentivize this stuff?
They'll be having sex as slaves. It happens all
If they're
the
not
time.
legally allowed to work.
And if we
they're not
no,
legally
they are
exposed
legally-
to the CPS
No,
system
listen,
and the
that's
education.
If we
not-
ease the
that's
process
not
of
what
immigrants
I'm
being able to come in
talking
here,
about.
we can
If they-
focus our law
Wait,
enforcement on
wait,
those.
Chase,
I didn't-
wait, I just want to help Robbie out. You're not talking about legally
I get back to
working
the whole-
child sex
No,
workers, right?
what we're
No,
talking
I'm
about.
saying having,
That's what he
having
just
an
said.
underclass. No, I'm
No,
saying
you
having
said
an
that.
underclass
Legal.
of people
You
because
said-
their
Hold on,
status
hold on.
in the country is legal
You said there will be
drives them
illegal
and their
people.
families into
There
unsafe
will
work,
be
including
different
that.
types of illegal activity with
pedophilia
people.
is driven by poverty?
Listen, they are libertarians, so again, the question about the age of consent. I might make them a little nervous. Maybe they should ask that one.
No, you're getting far beyond what we're talking about.
That's not what
Let's give Chase a chance.
No, but the truth is, if you want to combat indentured servitude, if you want to combat human trafficking, if you want to combat these things, allow the peaceful people to come here and live here. Allow them to come. No, allow people who want to come here.
Give them a piece of paper. So just give them a piece of paper that says
work is illegal, and the legal pathways are
So
outlawed.
my point was that criminal activities like that will not stop. But there are people, you're around my age, I know Jackson my age, I'm not sure how you are, but I'm going to guess we're all in the same 10-year
Our
time
first
period.
millennial president.
Okay,
Here.
so we're all millennials. We are very lucky to be here right now because there is an entire lost generation of our people who made one mistake, who did one thing throughout the entire, and their lives are destroyed. And once the drugs are in their community, there is no way to sit there and do anything on the offense. They're always on the defense. They are dependent for the rest of their life, and these drugs are getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm sorry, but it makes me beyond angry in like a real fundamental way in my gut right now that you sit there and you say, as long as they want to do this, people do not want to get hooked on drugs. You end up in circumstantial environments where you do. My aunt ended up on heroin. She was lucky to get off before it became black tar heroin, before it became fentanyl. Otherwise, she'd be dead. Her 2 kids would never been born. Things like that happen. These are our people. Millions are dead more than the Civil War, World War II. They're all dead. People our age are dead. You were lucky you were born without certain mistakes, because I guarantee you some people in your neighborhood aren't. And if you want to represent them and sit there and say, oh, don't worry about the war on drugs, their cartel members' lives are more valuable than yours, I'm sorry, but how fucking dare you?
Excuse me,
really
that's
makes
not what
me
I'm
angry.
saying.
Yes, you
That is
exactly
not what
are.
I'm saying.
You're sitting there saying you can't
No,
sit there and go
you're
after
putting words in my
cartel
mouth,
members
man.
because,
Listen,
no,
I
Robert,
care
don't
about
roll
the-
your eyes at me.
All right,
That is exactly
let's let Chase respond.
That is not emotional
My family
manipulation.
member. Oh,
Guys,
shut
guys.
the fuck up.
Robbie,
Chase is gonna respond.
all you do is say incorrect things
Ryan?
left and right and say, don't worry
Ryan?
about Americans, they'll
Oh
be
my
fine.
god, it's a total shit show now.
I'm not saying I want
Base.
an end to war on drugs. I want to actually put a public health model onto that and say, well, not public health because I don't like the state doing things. I want to see more mutual and direct aid to help get people off of drugs instead of throwing them into jails where they get re-traumatized. They come back out and they use again and get thrown in jail again. This is a cycle that's been created by the drug war. Yes, it is bad that people use drugs. It is bad that people get addicted to drugs and have negative outcomes from their lives. But none of that is improved by increasing a drug war. We increase the policing in our neighborhoods. We keep throwing people in jail. We keep the trauma factories open. We're filling prison beds instead of rehab beds. We're denigrating addicts as if they're lesser than in society and actually providing empathy to them. That is what pisses me off. That's what upsets me.
I understand that.
And so, yes.
I agree with you, but I have a question for you then. How do you do that when there is a country, China specifically, and Mexico, which sits there and always looks for the newest, cheapest, synthetic, more dangerous product? Do you constantly legalize the newest, cheapest synthetic
What
products?
you do is you decriminalize what people put in their own bodies so they can actually go to a pharmacy and test it, just like they do in Portugal, where they decriminalize all drugs. And guess what? If you're in Portugal, you can take your heroin to a pharmacy, you pay a small fee, and you can know whether it's
They
cut
did
with
that in
something.
Oregon,
That would actually
too.
increase I hate to say it this way, but it would make the drugs better. It would make them less likely to have fentanyl in them.
I get what you're
Okay.
saying. But
Poison,
people
right? They don't know what
in
they're
Oregon,
taking.
they
They
tried
don't
that.
need to be-
Portland tried that.
I mean,
It was a miserable failure.
This is in your book, Ryan.
Yeah,
You should probably
Portland-
speak up, right? That this is
Portland
essentially
tried that and was a
accidental
miserable
poisonings
failure.
because people are taking at a level of potency that
Okay,
they don't want
but
to.
okay,
It's not
They think
regulated at all.
they're
because
taking a
it's all black
Xanax
market.
and they're taking
I
fentanyl.
get
That
it.
is fraud.
I
That
get
is
it.
wrong.
That's
to
all
prosecute those
illegal.
crimes.
I get it. And in Portland, it wasn't. And in Portland, they did mass decriminalization. It was a giant failure. Giant. They had to recriminalize them. It is not the case that once you legalize everything, everything's just safer and better. It's not always the case, especially when dealing with things like synthetic drugs.
Yeah, you should be able to test them and know what's going into your own body. But you
If you
can't
have
do that
an
right
itch,
now
if
as a
you have a
user.
hunger, if you have a scratch and you got to sit there and itch in your arm, you will go to the person next to you. If it's cheaper and you've got no money because you burned it all through drugs, you will go to the person selling you whatever is available.
There are negative outcomes to addiction. I'm not arguing.
Okay, I understand that.
But what I'm saying is the better way to address those negative outcomes is not to make this into a huge criminal justice thing. And tying this all the way back to immigration, the best way to bankrupt the cartels is to remove the incentive for them to create drugs and remove
I
the war
argue
on
the
drugs.
best way to deal with the cartels is kill them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but you can't do that without.
Oh, yes, I can.
No, without
I'm
invading.
so that's just, oh my god, kill them and then what? And then like I don't understand if the incentive is still there, people will still do it. As long as the incentive to produce drugs is still there, people are going to do it. If you kill all the cartel members, guess what? A year from now, Cartel 2 is just going to pop up because there's still an incentive to do it. Yeah, but
Mexico,
address
you're not
the
gonna be able to
actual
take out the
issues.
cartels south of the border without invading south of the border, which violates the sovereignty of other nations, which is something we would never want violated.
Which is what they're currently doing to us right now, every day.
Listen, our government kills people all over the world. Our government creates violence all over the world, and that is not justification for somebody to come and attack our nation.
Which we've said.
Here's a funny story, though, Robbie, speaking in my book. Prohibition, which you're celebrating here, what Prohibition did is it pushed the production of alcohol underneath the southern border, south of the border, and created these cartels of liquor producers that then created smuggling pipelines up into
north of
the
the border,
United
so
States,
Canada.
into north of
Canada,
into the country. Literally, the smuggling operations that you're talking about trying to shut down were created by the thing that you're celebrating, Prohibition.
Not entirely one, especially when during Prohibition there was not a single entity that controlled the market, right? You had the Kennedy
It takes a while, sure. Yeah.
Oh, do you think if we just have enough free market time with the cartel will
Yes,
have
free markets
the
generally
cartel?
tend
No, I'm
towards
saying the
cartels.
cartel will eventually just have a competition like Walmart and Kmart. They'll just
No, it's the opposite.
So No, there's no organization equivalent to the cartel that has such a monopoly that had it during Prohibition. There wasn't a single crime family. There was like
you keep saying the cartel, but there's multiple cartels in competition with each other.
I slightly push back on that because what it is, no, the CIA.
Okay, nonetheless,
the cartel
it's not the same thing at all. And also,
no, it's
being produced by fentanyl in China. I mean, there are ways to sit there and change this operation. It's not being mass produced here. Yeah, it's not perfect. Yes, some will get through, but I'm sorry, there's literally more dead Americans from fentanyl than from the Civil War. That's a problem.
I think if anybody thought that going to war with Mexico would solve that,
you're not going to war with Mexico.
I mean, again, this is what it's like from your guys' side all night. $1 trillion war with Mexico. So you take something that we haven't said and you put it in our mouths and you respond to that without actually responding to things that we've said. Ryan's been doing it. Robbie's been doing it. Chase is not doing it as much. He's on it a little bit. And I've sat here and listened to this. We're going to war with Mexico. Go to war with Mexico. Mexico is not going to go to war with us.
Can we call it war within Mexico? Will that be better? If we say it's within Mexico, we're not going to war with the Mexico government.
How about just killing terrorists?
Killing the narco terrorists.
Yeah.
You're right.
Narco-terrorists, dude.
You know what?
Defend terrorists.
Good. I'm glad he's dead.
Okay, is ISIS around or not?
How did that ISIS
we didn't have to spend trillions and trillions of dollars to
You're right. We should have waited for El
Chapo's in prison, so
there's a lot of.
So here's a question to just, this is a little bit of a pivot, but we haven't yet discussed arguments that we often hear from people like Michael Anton on the right about this kind of social fabric of different communities. I think you, Jack, brought up Minnesota
I've been
earlier.
trying to.
The problems the problems with integrating
It's my fault.
the problems with integrating culturally different populations at high scales, especially in different parts of the country. Why is that a concern on your end? And then we'll go over here and say, different ways that maybe that can be alleviated. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I think culturally assimilating people is a huge problem right now. I'm talking, of course, of the green-haired, woke, college campus people who don't respect our values, who love socialism, who don't want to work, who make all the wrong life choices and are making our society much.
Just like me, guys. I'm the blue hair. I should dye my hair blue or green. I should do it. I'm the person who doesn't respect American values. I'm assuming me and this guy would have disagreement on what exactly American values are, but I'm not quite like that. But it's so funny that the other side has not addressed this point that there are plenty of people within America, the white liberal blue hair woman, who also don't respect American values. But we don't talk about deporting them.
Worse off, I'm grateful that we have these immigrants coming to the country to show them the way, because I'm very worried about the inability of people in our country to assimilate.
Does your concern there extend to
Ilhan Omar qualify for believing your values?
Well, I wouldn't vote for Ilhan Omar.
Okay, but
do you have concerns about what's happening in Deportation?
No, I want to know.
I am from Michigan. I lived in Michigan. I went to the University of Michigan. There's a heavy Muslim population there.
Yeah.
It has not shredded the social fabric of Michigan one iota. You can't tell that
Is clitorectomy higher in Michigan now than it was 30 years ago? Clitorectomies?
He's talking about FGM.
Yes. Are they higher now than they were 30 years ago? I'm saying,
that's a serious question.
You're saying it hasn't affected the cultural. Okay, clitorectomy is higher now than they were 30 years ago.
What's the
That
response?
seems bad, and we should prohibit it.
But you know what? We shouldn't bring it in from immigration. That's all my argument.
Is that a problem or not?
I don't care.
You don't care?
This is so beyond anything.
No,
I'm very
people don't
sick of
matter.
this argument.
Why
It's people are cogs for the corporations. So it doesn't matter what type of person comes in. It doesn't matter what type of cultural background they have.
I have at no point said that it doesn't matter. In fact, I
matters.
conceded. I say that it does matter who comes in.
You just said you don't care.
to have some.
You answered a specific question. You said you don't care. After
I mean,
what you just
I didn't realize this debate was going to be 2 hours long.
Neither do I. Yeah.
I'm a little worn down, I'll be honest.
Closing statements.
Let me say one more thing on this. There are Muslim people in Michigan who are as sick and disgusted by the excesses of wokeness as anyone else. That is my primary concern about America, is the threats that come to our culture from the far left, from a secular and anti-religious left that hates our traditions and hates freedom of speech. And there are lots of things I'm sure I disagree with many of my Muslim neighbors on back in Michigan, including on what's going on in Israel. I don't agree with them at all.
But
I also have disagreements again with the native population. So those are some of my most
What about
vicious
Charlie
and
Hebdo?
vehement
Is that a
disagreements.
serious problem of immigration?
Yeah, Europe has. Look, if I was in Europe, I might be advocating a different position. I openly say that they're taking in a lot of refugees at once, and there seems to me to be a more worrisome correlation between some of the crimes and sexual assault problems they've had in the cities there. I see the statistics, but it's not here. It's not the case. Here, the crime we have is not correlated to the immigrant population whatsoever. It's not.
First off, if assimilation is a concern, which I believe it is, we want people to be able to assimilate here eventually. You don't have to be able to speak the language to come here. Many immigrants came here speaking Italian or German or what have you, and they prospered, they created a business, or they worked, and they made better lives for their children. But assimilation is an issue. And the truth is that people who come here legally through a legal means, through a legal process, assimilate far quicker than those who come through an illegal process, where there's no process for them to come through.
Oh, true. Yeah. Especially if you granted work authorization immediately. Yeah.
Yes. If you said anyone wants to come, any workers, anyone wants to come, if that number went from 1 million a year to 140, because that's what the Gallup poll says. I think it's 180, but let's say 150, whatever. 150 million showed up in like a 5-year period. Would they all assimilate to our culture, we're a minority culture?
First off, I don't think that many people would come here.
Gallup literally said it.
But okay, well,
Okay.
Gallup
Let's
said it.
say
But if a lot of people come here, Our nation is one of assimilation of the melting pot. That's what we do for generations and generations over time.
We have controls. That assimilation for Italians and Germans that you mentioned.
We already import culture from all over the world. We import culture from all over the world, and we export the best of it outward. It doesn't, and immigrants are part of that. They are part of the fabric of this country.
Chase, when you said Germans and Italians, yes, they followed a 50-year pause in immigration from the 1924 to 1960, whatever, 7.
Yeah, but during the years that were immigrating, during the years that people were immigrating during Ellis Island, that was the year no Irish need apply. That was the year that basically anybody from Europe was deemed dirty, stupid, not worth hiring.
Southern Europe.
Yeah. But the point is that we have the exact same things against populations today. They have every potential to make great things. They have every potential to do great things.
You're making a qualitative argument. We're making a quantitative argument. Yeah. So you're saying all immigrants will be this way, whether they're from Southern Europe, whether they're from the Middle East, whether they're from Africa, whether they're from Central America, Mexico, etc. And that's just not the case. These are different parts of the world with different cultures, with different cultural backgrounds, many of which, by the way, if you have controlled immigration, so controls like what Ryan's talking about, keep it low, it does create the necessity for assimilation. But if you have mass immigration, their whole population comes over. There's no
we
need.
need to keep immigration from, for instance,
there's no need for them to assimilate that.
I'm pretty sure they've already agreed to some amount of control for immigration, but
because you just brought
we only have a
I would like
0.3%.
Norway and Sweden actually not to come. Yes, it's true. I don't want them also because they also probably vote for more socialism because that's how they have government.
But this is how you get more. And by the way, Robbie, there was actually something you said earlier I really wanted to address, which I think kind of gets to this. That you said we're not in danger of tyranny because of immigration, and I said, have you looked at the polls in Texas?
What is the implication?
So if and when Texas, let me explain.
Texas is going to vote for Donald Trump this year. I'm very confident.
This year, but if and when Texas imports enough migrants that Texas goes blue, there is no chance of anyone other than a Democrat being elected president for possibly 80 years.
What happens when the whole country is California? Well, what happens when the whole country is California?
A, I'm fine with barring them from voting.
So now
because
we
I
get
just want them to be able to come here and participate in our economic health. B, I don't concede that that's going to happen. Again, the trajectory in our country is, Virginia has flipped. Virginia's on, Virginia's a state that flips back and forth. Again, what I'm most worried about is affluent white and black people.
I really liked this point earlier. It might have been, I forget, I think it was Chase who said it, who was like, well, it's not my fault that Republicans are bad at appealing to Hispanics.
The government contractor class, the most liberal people on earth, the progressives, they have come, because of the growth of government, taken over Virginia and have made it more of a blue state. That is what worries me. The immigrants coming in, they are gettable.
Also, I'm okay. 2016 election, 270 went. Is that really? Is that really true? How many electoral votes does Texas have? Hold on. How does it let me? Can it let me change it? Change history. 2016. Does this automatically make Clinton win? Okay. Fuck. No, let's just make it. No, Clinton wouldn't. Even if Texas was blue, Clinton wouldn't have won in 2016. Although no one would have won, it would have been they would have gone to the House, I guess. It would depend on the. Hold on, if I do the Texas again, I think it said 36. Oops, 36 there, 0 here, and other. Oh, why doesn't it let me have an other? Okay, well, we'll just do 2 for Democrat. It would still go to the House, I guess. Okay, what about 2000 electoral college 272 win. Although this was really close, so Texas probably would change it, right? Yeah, Texas is obviously gonna change it. I don't know. Seems like Republicans would have to probably change their policy a little, but not like they couldn't appeal to
They're clearly gettable by
Latino
Republicans.
people.
You're and I agree with something you said earlier that just pursuing the most pro-amnesty or whatever policy. Yeah, they don't give a fuck about that. They don't care about that at all.
Robbie,
they can be appealed to by the sort of messaging that is appealing to everyone else in the country on the economy, on bringing down inflation, on all sorts of things. I'm saying immigration policy.
So Robbie and James, this is a question for Robbie and James.
There's no evidence for the fact that them streaming in has flipped the state.
Ronald Reagan didn't embrace immigrants.
Ronald Reagan was the governor of California.
Ronald Reagan got 30% of the Hispanic vote.
Texas will be the next
I'm talking about Republicans today.
So
Republicans who want to market
I'm
themselves
talking about
as
ever.
Pretty sure Ronald Reagan was relatively pro-immigration.
Why have
but
they never voted for not Ronald Reagan amnesty, George H.W. Bush amnesty, Bob Dole supported
I agree.
amnesty?
Amnesty is not a persuasive. They
never.
They agree.
You could not be more pro-immigration than George H.W. Bush. He literally increased the numbers.
But the point
to
is-
I don't think it's. I don't think pro-immigration is a selling point to them.
They don't
But
care.
the response to Robbie, I would say, is that look, this is how you get a state like California to become the California in just what from Reagan was government in the 60s, and then
We had a Republican
Nixon
governor in 08. We had Republican governors in the 90s. We had Republican governor in the 90s. That was the ballot 64, 46, Prop 46, whatever, 48.
And now that state is gone.
Yeah.
It is gone for
Okay.
Republicans, electorally speaking, and certainly gone in terms of all of the policies that you guys claim to say you want. Now, this mass immigration.
Not all
is
the
gonna bring
policies. I say actually, California just recently defeated a ballot initiative, a race preferences initiative that is opposed by Asian immigrants, who are the most discriminated against class under the racial preferencing system. Again, that's anti-wokeness of immigrants coming through.
So
So let me
Enough
direct this to
offset
Chase.
the
Let me
black
direct this to
and
Chase.
Hispanic
So do you not have concerns that if our immigration policy looked more like, let's say, Europe's 10 years ago, Europe's 15 years ago, are we inviting in more potential attacks like on Charlie Hebdo? Are we inviting in some of the more serious assimilation problems that Robbie alluded to? I don't know what you think about those, Chase. I won't answer the question for you, but if you do share those concerns.
Well, Europe is having a big problem with refugees. We don't really have issues with refugees. What we have issues with is asylum seekers. But as everyone on the stage has already agreed to, most asylum seekers don't have necessarily legitimate asylum claims. Yeah, and they're economic migrants. Like, they're people moving here for job opportunities, not for the same reason that Syrians were moving to Sweden, right? Syrians were fleeing war, whereas people are just moving here for economic opportunities, and they help our country, they help our native population, they create jobs, they create businesses, they work for businesses, about
some types of assimilation, wouldn't the policies that you guys have argued on behalf of tonight create more of those problems?
I think that the most likely.
Yeah, I don't think they would make the problems worse. Those problems are going to exist. Assimilation problems will exist. I don't think allowing more people to come here necessarily makes it where assimilation becomes harder. I would argue that more people coming here sees more people exposed to the American way of life. They export those values not just to them, but to the other people within their community. Like just look at if you want to look at Muslims. Muslims in America far less radical than Muslims in the Middle East. Many of them immigrated from somewhere else. They came out.
Yeah.
The American way. No, forever. They always have been. They have always been less radical than those in the Middle East. And this is because they come here, they experience the American way of life, they assimilate to our culture over time, they create businesses, they create jobs.
Like the Boston Bombers,
Yeah, our magic dirt keeps.
I'm not saying you're not going to get me to say that no crime will ever come from immigrants.
But
that's
my
utter conviction is that the person most likely to carry out some attack on hate speech grounds, that a publication or something was engaged in hate speech, is a baseball bat-toting graduate of Evergreen College who is a native-born citizen.
He just keeps going after the woke people, dude. He keeps going after the blue hair woman. I mean, again, they're going to disagree on the crime rate, but again, legal immigrants tend to commit less crime than a population, and legal immigrants do too. Well, the data on illegal immigrants is kind of hard. The data on illegal immigrant crime is like really hard to get. They're basically the only state that has good data is Texas, and Texas, I think the Texas data is based on like 50 illegal immigrants who have committed crimes, but looks like they're both lower than the native-born population, so they decrease the relative crime rate.
Wealthy, white or black parents.
The bigger point about it,
That's Antifa. That's Antifa. Trashes.
The reason the Italian mafia broke up over time was not because it was partly because we stopped Italian immigration in large part, and they assimilated over 3 generations with a near fixed population. The reason that Muslim immigrants are not that radical is because we have not ghettoized them. They don't have. I mean, outside of like Michigan, there's a few places, but overall, the Muslim population in this country do not live in ghettos, in places where they are completely living amongst themselves, and radicalization could happen. That does happen when you have mass groups of people in any given place. It will become worse, not better. If there's fewer, they will assimilate with majority culture, even if it's a majority, shit lib culture, whatever the case is, they will eventually assimilate over time. If they're fixed.
Is that what you're saying happened in California?
I'm part of the shit lib culture. Resist.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're already having problems with Antifa and the green-haired Evergreen State College graduates are blue-haired, I forget what you said, Robbie. I'm not sure which irks you most.
Just like me, the woke warrior.
So I can never throw them under the bus.
Well, yes, of course you would. So if let's say this is an Ann Coulter argument, a common Ann Coulter argument, for example. So if we already have problems,
Ramaswamy shouldn't be president.
a new Ann Coulter argument. If so, we already have problems with crime, or we already have problems with hate speech, encroachments on free speech from our own native-born population. Why should we, even if there are lower rates, let's accept the research, even if there are lower rates from the research that you guys have cited of crime or problems with assimilation, whatever it is, why should we bring more of it in instead of dealing with the problems that are plaguing people throughout the country, American citizens?
Because on the whole, immigration is a good thing. It enlarges the economic pie. So on the whole, yes, we can look at specific things and say, yes, crime is bad, and when people come here to commit crime, that is obviously bad. But if you look at the whole picture of what immigrants contribute to this nation, what they have contributed to this nation, as they assimilate, become Americans themselves over time too, is a growing of the economic pie. There are more benefits to immigration than negatives. That is just where the statistics are in terms of economic output.
If we'd stuck with net zero immigration starting in the 1850 or whenever you want, we would have lost World War II.
But again, you're jumping all over the place.
We had net zero immigration during World War II.
We did have that during World War II, by the way.
What's that?
We did have that during World War II, by the way.
Yes, but the population had exploded in the 50 years after.
We won the biggest war during near net zero immigration. What are you talking about?
Because
we
we had
were
grown from a
fighting some of the
backwater
countries where
country
those people
in
were from.
1820 to becoming the most powerful country in the country 120 years later as our population quadrupled.
Because they were all, okay. Yes, when we took in 99% English, Scottish, Welsh, Irish, German, Dutch, all speak nearly a common language and common culture.
They're going to go back to the race culture shit again.
Country.
There was a lot of internal tensions among those people, though. I mean, like my great-great-grandparents were, I think, a Polish and a Serbian man. It was considered a mixed marriage. Like those people didn't even, the families didn't even get along. The idea was like a shared heritage. They hated, and there was religious tension as well, not between Catholics and other groups.
Having settled by Somalians, Ethiopians, Brazilians, they didn't exist. But yeah, would we be America? No, we were America because we were uniquely settled by Brits.
The Irish were considered white people. I mean, these were so different groups. It's like we consolidated.
We are American because who settled us were Brits who believed in the ideals of that time period and founded the greatest country and kept it
at
that
the beginning.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But then we've taken in all of those ethnic groups you're talking about. We've taken in were so fundamentally dissimilar from each other.
Not that much.
They really were.
Not really that much.
He's absolutely correct here. We can literally no Irish sign New York. Oh, why historians are fighting about it, but why did Irish need not apply? Yeah. So, blah, blah, blah. One corner arguing an Irish immigrant in the mid-19th century was relatively unlikely to run to no Irish need apply postings. It's a tenure, but ideologically, yeah. What the fuck? Neoclastic?
Iconoclastic.
Iconoclastic. Characterized by attack or cherished beliefs. I don't know. Point is, there definitely was some amount of discrimination against Irish people in especially New York. So for Irish discrimination in New York. Yeah.
I think 50 years ago they didn't want Catholics. The majority of the people in the country were afraid of a Catholic being president.
So yeah, 40% of people in this country can identify a family member that came through Ellis Island during the last wave of migration. Those people would not be here today if we had net zero
in
migration.
In 1990, 50% of the population could identify themselves as the American Revolution.
Most of the people who
built the American Revolution. So what are you talking about?
Most of the people that built the country in the 19th century were actually from Africa. To your point,
that is not true either. That's another nonsense lie. The majority of people from Africa did what?
Who built the country?
That is not true. That is not true. That is such a lie. Like all the wealth in the entire country.
Not Africa.
Most of the wealth in this country did not come from slavery. Most of the wealth that was created in this country did not come from slavery. Slavery was actually
I don't know to ever. What does he mean by wealth in a country? Slavery was definitely important for building. Immigration was really important for building the railroads, right? The Irish and Chinese immigrants were really important for building a lot of transported railroads, and a lot of wealth did come from slavery in the South. A lot of the agricultural wealth obviously came from slave plantations, as well as Fuck. Hold on. I might be making this up. Hold on. Georgia roads slaves. So there were a lot of railroads, I guess, built by slaves in Georgia. Hold on. I was just using regular roads, but railroads would have been more popular at the time. Slave boat railroads gave rise to Georgia's largest city, Atlanta. God, again, another non-fun correct W.
Charleston was, yes, there was a lot of slave labor.
We're going to go to closing statements because we have 2 minutes left. Okay. So each of you... God. We have made it.
10 seconds each. 10 seconds each.
But, okay, we'll start with you, Robbie, then we'll go to Ryan, and we'll go back and forth, just like we did in the opening. Robbie Suave.
Okay, I've said everything I wanted to say. I don't have a lot more else to say. Immigration is great, and we should have more of it.
Yeah, I support the immigration. I support making it easier for people to be able to come here, work here, create, and add to the economic pie, and I want to see more of that, and I'm campaigning on that right now.
Jack.
The amnesty policies that we've heard tonight would destroy this country. They would tear this country apart. They would actually lead us down the road to socialism far faster than any of the people.
Dude, I agree with the libertarians on this for the most part, except the ending welfare shit. But, oh my god, what a fucking dumbass closing statement, dude. If you're, first of all, they're getting the last word here, and usually like the last word, because people have like recency bias. Who gets the last word is important. The fact that despite the fact that they got the last word, the libertarians' closing statements was just like, immigration is good. That's fucking, oh my god. They should have had a much better closing statement than that, because like, you need a really good closing statement in order to overcome the other opponents getting the last word. But they didn't try at all.
People that we've talked about.
Oh, goddamn, that's painful.
I'm good with that. Then it's 10 seconds. Immigration should be safe, legal, and rare.
There you go. All right.
That's such a good line.
Okay.
We made it.
At
to
least
9 p.m.
they didn't try
Everyone
that hard
Thank
either.
you so much for being here, viewing or listening. We appreciate you sticking with us. I found this very
Thanks, Liberty Twitcher.
interesting, very shouty on all of you, from everyone. So that's always a lot of fun. Ryan, did you have fun?
I had a blast. Everybody should watch. We had Vosh and Dave Smith debating Ukraine. That'll be up tomorrow over at Counterpoints. Yeah.
Wait, what the fuck? They had Vosh and Dave Smith debating Ukraine? What? Just closing statements on my closing thoughts in this debate. Much as I might not agree with libertarian, seemed to be pretty based on immigration. Like, they clearly had much better arguments when it came to creating a better pathway to legal immigration. Versus the other side was just like, well, I think we should bomb the cartel and fucking build a Gaza border wall on our southern border. Which again, it disappointed. It like the ignorance on the more, like, I call them authoritarian. I'm just calling them authoritarian in relation to the libertarians. They're more authoritarian than the libertarians. On the more authoritarian side, the complete failure to address the actual issue, which is the 1967 rights in a UN fucking convention refugee shit, and the US's own domestic laws on asylum. The complete inability for them to reconcile with that and propose any type of new law other than an asylum ban. And the total, I don't want to call it the total misunderstanding of the economics behind immigration. Yeah. Feel like did not go well for them. I think they quoted a lot of probably bad data too on on the immigrant crime rate and on the immigrants using welfare stuff. Yeah, I think all those things made it so I do have to unfortunately agree with the libertarians, at least on the immigration.